Warning, the following podcast contains spoilers. So if you don't want to know that Angela has a wiener, stop listening now.
The International House of Horror.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the International House of Horror podcast, a low-budget podcast for low-budget horror movies. I'm your host, Rocco, aka the Mad Pancaker, and across from me is none other than Scary Perry.
Hey now.
How you doing over there, Scary Perry?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing quite well myself. So, ready to dive into this week's hotcakes?
Do it. Let's do it.
All right, well, so this is a big episode. This is our 10th episode. So
oh, wow.
We made it to 10 episodes. I think that's about maybe 8 more episodes than I thought we'd ever get to. But here we are. We're chugging away. We keep on doing it. So,
yay.
First off, as always, I'd like to plug the social media. So you can find me at the Mad Pancaker or at the Mad Pancaker pretty much anywhere. Facegram. I'm combining the two. They're owned by the same company anyway. So Facebook, Instagram, at the Mad Pancaker on Twitter. Perry, they can find you at Scary Perry or Scary Perry on Facebook, right?
Or at Perry Scary. Yeah.
Or Perry Scary. That's right.
You'll find me. You'll see the
You'll
see our logo, the podcast logo.
Yep. So we got that. So you could check us out on Patreon to help support the podcast. It helps make this low budget podcast not so low budget and cover all this equipment that I've upgraded. So, and I would like to say that I believe right now there's only a $2 tier, but soon, hopefully maybe by the time I put this episode out, I'm going to add a $5 tier and a $10 tier.
Oh.
And with those tiers, so we're finally going to open up at the $5 tier. I think that one's going to be called the short stack tier. I'm not sure what the $10 tier is going to be called yet. Maybe we'll call it like the Grand Slam. They don't really call it a tall stack. There's, I actually Googled it. They don't really call it a tall stack of pancakes. It's weird. Maybe we can rip off Denny's and call it the Grand Slam. Do they have a trademark on the Grand Slam breakfast name?
I have no idea. They might.
We'll figure it out. I'll figure it out when I set it up. But at the $5 tier, so as you know, we open every episode with a spoiler, which will be important later on towards the end of Hotcakes. But you can choose a spoiler intro for an episode. So I think a one-time thing, you get one, but you still get the other benefits, and I'll come up with other bonuses at the tiers, to give you more stuff. Once we figure out how to do some audio commentary, maybe we can do some audio commentary for some movies. Put them up on Patreon. That'd be fun.
Oh, wow. Like Mystery Science Theater?
Yeah. A lot of people do that as a Patreon bonus. So I figure that'll be something. For the $10 tier, that's the big one. That'll be where you get to choose an episode. So you could choose a movie for us to review on a future episode of the podcast. And we'll fit it in whenever we have a gap in our schedule, or if it fits a theme, like if you pick a Christmas movie, you'll be like, okay, we could do that as one of our Christmas movies. So I think that'll be something cool. So, and again, another kind of one-time thing. I mean, we might reopen it once we get through. I mean, we don't have many people now, but once we get through a couple of rounds of people, we might open it up and be like, hey, everybody's got another pick a movie thing again type deal. And of course, we'd like to shout out to our one and only patron at the moment, no other than AJ Sabino, and I'd like to thank him for everything he does for the podcast as well. And you can check out his illustration work at, I believe it's AJ Sabino Illustration.
I think
on
that's correct.
Facebook.
Yeah, AJ Sabino Illustrations.
Yeah, don't bother his personal Facebook. Just check out his illustration content. So you'll find him. He's got a graphic novel he's been working on. So I believe the first, and it's also it's available in webcomic format. So I think you could check it out. I believe, I can't remember the name. I'd like to plug it. I'll plug it another time, whenever I remember the name of it. But it's pretty cool. He does great work as always. So, all right, on to the hotcakes and proper. I'll lead it off here. So the trailer for the remake of Resident Evil 4 is out.
Oh.
So have you seen the trailer yet, Scary Perry?
I have not.
If this was more accessible, I might flip it around. We could just play it on air here, but I think you'd be allowed to do that, but I'm not going to screw around with it. It looks interesting. I've kind of been of the opinion where I don't really know if we need an updated version of Resident Evil 4 because it's still. I know it came out like in the early 2000s, which is almost 20 years now ago, but it still seems too recent of a game with recent technology. I understand because I've been going back playing it, the graphics look good. I mean, they're not like super impressive like they are now, but they're still pretty impressive for the time. And there's some clipping things where guys clip through walls and shit like that you can improve on. But you have some of that shit happen in modern games anyway, so.
Yeah.
But it looks interesting. The trailer didn't reveal much. I'm sure you can click on all the clickbaity YouTube videos that say 10 things or 30 things you didn't notice in their RE trailer that are just like little dumb clickbait where they circle a random spot on this still shot from the video. I'm just like, I hate those fucking videos.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
But, and some of it's just like so obvious stuff that you can pick out. It's like, oh yeah, of course that's the Los Illuminados logo. Duh. It also looks like a bit darker and grimier, which might be a better aesthetic for that type of survival horror game. Because the other one was working with its content, so even with all the dull grays and browns and stuff, it's still very bright for a game. But we'll see. It should be kind of fun. I'll check it out for sure, but like I said, I'm still a little hesitant on this remake. Because I wasn't a big fan of the Resident Evil 3 remake. It was a good game, but it gutted so much of the original. So we'll see. I'll pick it up, of course, and check it out. So, all right, Perry, you got any hotcakes for us?
Well, me and you did watch a film together.
We did.
I
introduced you to something. What did I introduce you to?
You did introduce me to Giallos before, but this is. I kind of thought they were originally. I thought Giallos were lame with the dubbing over the voices.
It's something you get used to. I mean, the other alternative. Well, even the Italian audio is technically dubbed because that's just how they did it.
What was the first one we watched together?
I believe the first one we ever watched was A Blade in the Dark.
Okay,
by Lamberto Bava.
Yes.
That one was also, it's a little slower because it was supposed to be like a made-for-TV series, but then they just decided to make a movie instead, so.
This was many years ago when we saw that. So we just decided to watch a movie one day after hanging out, and Rock was like, go ahead and pick a movie from, or Matt, whatever, Rock Matt Pancakes, like, go ahead and pick a movie from my stack, and I'm like, which pancake should I choose? And I've listened to like horror movie music just by like Googling it. I've always heard Goblin's Tenebrae, and I really like Tenebrae.
Goblin does some really good stuff.
And I'm like, you know what? Let's watch Tenebrae. And I gotta say, this movie was really, really good.
Oh yeah, and Argento in his prime.
I think I have a little Giallo itch right now because I'm watching bits and pieces, but I get them. But it's so good. John Saxon was the man in this movie. Oh yeah,
John Saxon and his hat that won't fall off.
His hat that doesn't fall off. I mean, this movie it was so great, and it's so awesome that like every time a kill happens, they play that Goblin Tenebrae music, dot 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 dot, and then. Oh man, so right now, I'd have to just give it, I mean, obviously revisited, but just after the first watch with us, it's going to get like 5 cannolis.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a 5 pancake covered in syrup movie for me. I don't think it's not my favorite Dario Argento Giallo. That would be Deep Red for sure, but it's still up there. It's really good. It's really fun, great gore, and the usual visual style you get from Argento.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Do you know what chapter 1 in Deep Red is titled?
Oh my god, it's fuck Trivial Pursuit.
We play
I know it now. It's the screaming child in the
Trivial
house or the mansion or whatever.
Yeah. I won, by the way. Scary Perry.
Yeah, you finally won.
I think Scary Pod might have took over my body.
Scary Pod was like funneling you the answers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to smack that kid around next time I go to the school. Wink, wink, school.
Oh boy.
All right, so I guess were you all done with that hotcake?
Yeah.
About Tenebrae?
Go ahead.
But I'm a big fan of Argento anyways, so I love a lot of his stuff. Till we get to Dracula 3D. We'll have to cover that one sometime. Have you heard about Dracula 3D?
I have not.
It's something. It's one of those so bad it's good movies. Fortunately, Argento's quality later on, like after into the 90s, it started going downhill. But next up, so I talked about this last time coming out, there's the Quarry video game that just came out not too long ago, and I've played through it. I've beaten it once, and I don't think it's really a game where you can lose per se. It's just you guide the outcomes because it's kind of like a Telltale, kind of like the Telltale adventure games with like their Walking Dead game where you move around, you interact with stuff, you pick up some objects, but then it's all about choosing between 2 outcomes, and then those outcomes have repercussions on the story as they go down the line. But the bigger budget, of course, better graphics. Telltale kind of uses that like comic book cel-shaded style artwork for their stuff.
Yeah, I put the Back to the Future one.
Yeah, that one's a little more normal CG animation for it, but that was another fun one. But this isn't a Telltale game, but it's from I forget the name of the company off the top of my head. I think they did The Last of Us. Is that the?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's another game similar in style to that. So it's more like kind of like an interactive movie almost, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
I'd probably give it like a 4.5 right now. I really enjoyed it. It's got a cool storyline. Ted Raimi's the man in it, and he's in it a good amount. I don't know if like some of these other characters show up a little bit more as you play through, but like when I played the first time, like David Arquette's really not in it too much. He's like in there at the beginning, and then
you cannot kill David Arquette.
Oh, well, unfortunately, in my first playthrough, and this isn't really a spoiler because depending on decisions you make, different things are going to happen, but I definitely fucking shot David Arquette's face off.
You're horrible.
With a shotgun.
He's still not dead, though, you realize.
No, he's pretty dead.
Oh, fine.
He's pretty dead in that. Like, I wish there was a little more Lance Hendrickson, but it's got a great cast, too, of other people. Those are, like, the big three I always recognize out of it, though. From my experience, but yeah, it's fun if you like this like atmospheric horror setting and creepiness, and the characters are pretty fun too. A lot of the counselors are likable, but I mean they're very stereotypical and stock, which isn't a bad thing. But overall, I enjoyed it. So, like I said, probably like 4.5 pancakes for a video game rating. So, and kick it back to you, Perry.
Back to me. So another thing I rewatched recently is the movie Hereditary.
Oh boy,
this movie is really. I don't think it's bad. It's really fucking weird. But I mean, it's really good. I mean, the performances by like Toni Collette and other people in it. It's. I don't know. I was watching while I was working. I don't know if that's the best thing. So I wasn't that in depth, but it's still like the same feeling. I don't know. I can't really rate it. I'm like, it's not bad. It's just different.
Just weird.
Yeah.
There's a lot of films I feel that way about. It's like, well, this wasn't terrible, but it's really weird. All right, back to me. So I watched on the old Tubi, so I watched this film called Skinned Alive from the 90s, I think. Now, you remember that one zombie movie we watched. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, how it kind of got like re-released and upgraded a little bit with the dubbing, like Bruce Campbell dubbed the guy. Do you remember that one? You know, with the zombies and like there's that doctor there. And it's really overdubbed, and like Bruce Campbell dubs one of the guys. You remember there's like those zombie police people that go around and
you know what I'm talking about,
and how you could tell like
that was
the title.
It's filmed around us. That was filmed around us.
Yes. So and you remember the title sequence was like an updated title sequence. Like you could tell they were using modern like editing equipment to do the title sequence, but it was filmed back in the day. So this was like a kind of almost like a remaster. That's how this movie is.
Okay.
And it was also filmed around here, I believe, up by the Akron area, because I think they make an Akron reference.
Okay.
And I think similar people made it. I don't know who all was involved, but obviously, so Scott Spiegel plays a guy in it, and he's great. Good old Scott Spiegel, director of Intruder, from our first episode. But very fun film. I kind of dozed off in the middle of it and then had to pick it up again, so I missed a couple of cool kills that I kept rewinding. I'm like, what just fucking happened? Oh, this random guy got killed. But about these people who are like cannibals. So it's a fun little film. Not like super great. I mean, you have to be into that kind of like cheesy type stuff. But probably like, I'd give it like a 3.5. It was a good time. Somewhere in 3.5 range. So
Cool.
Yeah, any more hotcakes, Perry?
We talk about the movie that you watched, basically, and I watched maybe half of and fell asleep.
Yeah, you were tilting. It's all right, it happens.
I'm a tilter sometimes. It was a long day. Was it called Autopsy?
Yes, it was called Autopsy. It's got a couple different names. What was the name that it kept trying to show us at the beginning? It's like, that's not the name of this film. Yeah. But it's because, again, it's another one of those foreign films, Italian film, obviously, that has a couple different names because of the translation and stuff.
This movie was, well, from what I saw before I tilted, is batshit crazy.
Oh yeah. Who did that one? Was it Armando Crispano or somebody like that?
Let me see if I can find it real quick. You know me, love to use the Googles. No, it didn't come out in 2008, so I have no idea right now. Oh, in 1975 maybe.
Yeah.
All right. I found it, but hold on, give me a second. To the director. To the window. What? Yeah, Armando
Crispano? Or however you say it. Crispino, however you say it. Man, I'm on fire.
Armando
I nailed
Crispino.
it. I nailed it again.
You got it.
But yeah, it's definitely a weird giallo. I do like it because it's really weird. There's definitely some questionable scenes that we won't talk about right now in it, but you know the one.
Yes.
But yeah, but it's got a lot of weird visuals and stuff in it. But it's a fun time. It's not like the greatest giallo. It's a bit loose in the plot, which is unusual of an Italian film. So what'd you think of it overall, though, Perry?
So what I saw, I need to go back and watch it again, but I'm gonna go with for what I saw. I like batshit crazy sometimes, so I'm gonna go like 3.5.
I think that's about right. Yeah. It's not like deeming of being a 4, a classic giallo, but it's a fun one off the beaten trail. I do enjoy it for its craziness. From what I've read of people's opinions about it, the ending's about maybe the weakest part because it's like very stereotypical giallo, but I didn't mind the ending. It is okay, and it does feel like it's just trying to rush through and tie up the rest of the movie, but it's got some interesting
What did
things.
happen at the end? No, you don't spoil.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it right now, but it might be a spoiler intro one day for sure.
We had to Tubi that. We Tubi'd it.
Yeah, we Tubi'd it. I don't own it.
Is that a new thing? Tubi?
Yeah. Some people do Tubi Tuesdays, where they review a movie from Tubi on Tuesdays.
Really?
Yeah, that's a thing.
There's a lot of good stuff in there.
There is.
And it's free, and the ads aren't that long.
True. Back to me, I guess.
Yeah, go back to you.
All right, so up next, about that one giallo I talked about that I have in one of the Giallo Essentials packs, Strip Nude for Your Killer, I watched. So it was interesting. It was a fun time. Probably, again, in like that 3.5 range. But, man, there was probably more J&B product placement, which is not unusual for these films. It's almost the list of giallos without a J&B product placement is probably far, far shorter than the list with. It's easier to list the ones without J&B product placements than it is to list all the ones with it. But there's probably more J&B product placement in this movie and J&B bottles than there is nude women in it, which is saying something for a movie called Strip Nude for Your Killer. And there's still a lot of naked women in this movie. So
is J&B a product of J-Bones?
Maybe. I don't think so. I did some research. It doesn't even make sense. It's not even an Italian brand. It's based out of England. Although I guess an Italian guy moved there way back in the day and kind of started it. But it's very...
I'm just Googling it. I didn't even know what it was. Scotch.
Yeah, J&B Scotch.
Or whiskey, whatever.
Yeah. So it appears in some other films, too. I know there's a bottle in The Thing.
I see it. Yeah, I've seen it. You've seen a lot of movies.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have an Italian household if you don't have a bottle of J&B Scotch.
I'm sure there is one somewhere. And... Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, it's a fun one. It's a little crazy. I got confused by the end just because, like, I thought they were calling this character a different name, but it turns out there's just 2 characters that kind of look similar, which completely threw me off and confused me. But overall, it was a pretty good time. All right, you got any more hotcakes, Perry?
I'm fresh out.
Fresh out? All right, let me swing through all these real quick. I watched the Resurrected, which I believe was a hotcake pickup that I talked about a little bit ago. That's the one with Chris Sarandon. Really? I think that's the big one that pops out. But one of the characters from my favorite movies was in it. Good old Damone from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Speaking of which, hey Damone, how you doing? What's that? Oh, I forgot you have my wallet. What a swell guy! He brought me my wallet. Thanks, Damone. Hey, say, I'm looking for a new podcast co-host. Are you interested?
Huh?
No, Damone? Oh, you got to go? All right, Damone. All right, thanks for bringing me my wallet, though.
What was that?
That's a Fast Times at Ridgemont High reference, where Damone brings that kid his wallet.
Why would you want to replace me?
Oh, that part? Well, I don't know. Guess I'll have to fall back on Scary Pod for the replacement again.
Oh
Hey-o. I love the podcast co-host replacement gag. But let's just say it was more like Sad Times at Ridgemont High for Damone in the Resurrected, unfortunately. But it's a fun little film. It's based off the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, which I haven't read that one. I don't know how...
Does it have Cthulhuism in it?
Yeah, they all have like an element of cosmic horror to them. It was pretty good. A lot of good gore. Directed by Dan O'Bannon, as I talked about before. I believe Stuart Gordon produced it. But a fun time, it's probably about 4. It moves around a good place. It's got some good gore, good actors in it. All right, so Perry's out of hotcakes, so I'll go on to my next one. So I watched The Little Shop Little Shop of Horrors, Little Shop of Horrors. The musical, obviously, from the 1980s, directed by Frank Oz, Yoda himself.
Yoda.
Obviously, a great movie, fantastic effects, but I've never watched like the whole thing all the way through, or if I had, it was like maybe when I was a kid. It was one of those, I knew about, seen clips of it, but obviously with Rick Moranis, I can't remember the name of this one chick, but she's the chick that plays like one of the ghosts in Scrooged, the high-pitched one she plays Audrey. You know who I'm talking about. She's in a lot of stuff. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
I don't know either. But I know who you're talking
obviously about. A lot of big musical people in it too. But yeah, very fun time. Probably easily a 4.5, maybe 5. I know a lot of people really like that movie. The one thing I know is just because I have watched the original Roger Corman one numerous times, is it's very quick-paced. I don't think there's as much oh God, what the hell is Rick Moranis' character name? I can't. Seymour, thank you. Yeah. Feed me, Seymour. There's not as much of him as feeding actual people to the thing. Like, he only like kind of feeds the dentist in that one.
Okay.
Whereas in the original, he's like chopping up people that are like, I don't think he like kills everyone, but he just like finds these random people that die and just starts chopping them up and feeding them. Whereas in this one, there's really only the dentist, and then Mr. Mushnick kind of accidentally gets eaten. But yeah, fun time. Oh, okay. So I didn't actually grab my pickups, but that's okay. I could do it without them here, so Perry won't be able to see them, but I left them over there for pickups for this week, or for this episode. So I ordered a couple things from Shout Factory. I picked up the 1980 slasher film, Alone in the Dark.
Oh, okay.
Starring Jack Palance, Donald Pleasance.
Bruce Valanche.
No, Palance.
Oh,
Jack
okay.
Palance.
Oh.
Or Palance, however you say it.
I'm just joking.
I know some people say Palance, and like my father always says Palance, so I'm like, I don't know how to say this fucker's last name.
I don't know. Watch some YouTube interviews or something.
There's somebody else in there. Why can't I think of his name? It's got a decent cast list to it. I watched it. It's pretty fun. It's a fun little film. Probably like in the 4, maybe 4.5 range, but
cool.
Starts out a bit slow, which is unusual, but it's still interesting. It's funny because Donald Pleasance once again plays a doctor at a mental institute, although this time seems a bit more on like the hippie side to it. So, but I love Donald Pleasance stuff, and it's more of, I mean, they call it a slasher, but it's very more of like a tight thriller. Like, there isn't a high body count. It's just there's this blackout that causes the security system in a mental institute to go out. So this group of murderer, psychotic inmates escape because of it, and then they terrorize this one doctor because he's the one doctor at the facility, not Donald Pleasance, but the other doctor that just showed up because they think he killed the other doctor.
Gotcha. That
he replaced. So they like surround his family during this blackout and terrorize them, and it's a fun time. Fun little thing is one of the characters briefly wears a hockey mask like Jason as they kill somebody. And it predates Jason actually getting the hockey mask, though.
Oh, wow.
It came out before Friday the 13th Part 3, so it's kind of a neat little fun fact. So next up, the other thing I picked up from Shout Factory. So I threw in Alone in the Dark to get free shipping, whereas this one was another one of those they're only making 1,500 of type things, so I picked it up. The Ninth Configuration, which stars Stacy Keach. There's a lot of big name people in this. I wish I had the box in front of me. I know, like, the thing that sold me was, and he's probably like a bit role because I don't even think he's listed in like when they list, like the list of actors on the front, where they list a couple of them, in like the credit style setup that they print on the back of the box. Like Tom Atkins is in it.
Oh, it's automatically good.
There's some other big name people in it, but I don't have it in front of me. But it's funny because on the spine,
Joe Spinell.
Yes, Joe Spinell's in it.
I'm pulling it up here.
There you go.
You can always count on me for that. Scott Wilson, Jason Miller, Ed Flanders, Neville Brand.
Neville Brand's a big one.
I haven't heard a lot of these. Sorry. George DiCenzo, Moses Gunn, Robert Loggia.
Robert Loggia.
I'm sorry.
Right? Is that Loggia?
That's probably right. Alejandro Ray, Steve Sandor, Richard Lynch, and William Peter Blatty. 1980.
But yeah, so it's funny though because on the spine, and people pointed this out on Twitter before it came out, as the spine says the Ninth Coin-figuration. So it's got. I think they'll send you something as a replacement, but I really don't care because it's like, well, as long as the movie's okay. But I haven't watched it yet. But it's another one I've heard a lot about, and once I've heard Tom Atkins was in it, I'm like, sold. It's been on my to-be list for a while, but I'm like, well, if they're only making 1,500, I'm going to pick this up now.
So it has a pretty good rating.
Quality.
pretty long movie.
Yeah,
Did it hold
it
your
is a
interest?
long.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why I said I haven't watched it yet, but I look forward to it. It's been something on my to-be list and watch later list for a while, so... But looking forward to checking that one out. And then, so now I got some book pickups that I picked up when I was doing a little mall crawl, walking past all the shuffling zombies, trying not to get eaten, but I stopped into the bookstore in the mall, and so picked up a couple of books. I don't have them here in front of me because, again, I was shitty for setup. I had everything set up, but then I forgot to grab the pickups. But
happens.
So I picked up The Living Dead, which is a novel by George A. Romero and somebody else, I forget the name. But essentially, George Romero was writing a novel, but then he passed away about in the Living Dead universe.
Oh, okay.
As much as there is a Living Dead universe, because, all the movies don't really tie together super well. But it's something I heard. It came out in 2020, I think. It's something that was on my radar, but I was, just strolling the mall, trying not to get eaten, watching Sombrero stick his arm in the heartbeat and the blood pressure machine and get eaten alive, trying to dodge crazy biker people, shooting everything and looting the place. But so I stopped in there. I picked that up. I'm looking forward to reading that. Seems like it should be a good read.
Right.
Plus, probably the last thing from George A. Romero you'll ever get because it was, almost finished and then passed away. So
yeah.
I'm trying to think, what else did I pick up? Oh, I picked up the book Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Okay.
Classic, nice little classic version. So, I can't think of the author's name at this point, but classic, obviously, something I've been wanting to read. Not a very big book compared to like something like Frankenstein or Dracula, but is it?
I'm trying.
No,
I
you're
mistyped
Googling
it.
there.
I mistyping. Somebody probably knows it like right off the bat. I
It's
know my my
once
good
I hear
buddy,
it, I'll know it.
the Grim Librarians, listen to this, and he's probably just
Once
face-palming.
I
Robert Louis
Stevenson. I was going to say Stevenson is the last name, but I could not remember the rest of it. And then the final book pickup that's probably horror related. I did pick up kind of sort of related, but Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy, which contains Inferno, Purgato, and then Paradiso, the 3 volumes of the Divine Comedy. People most familiar with Dante's Inferno, the first volume, but
Yeah.
not really. Inferno is hell, so it's kind of related. And I know there's been adaptations that play on Dante's Inferno, the movie. Not that is that horror? I
don't.
I only know about.
Well,
Or does that make it
a video game too?
There's been
I think it was like a horror video game or something. I don't know. Or kind of. I don't know.
And then the final book, I picked up the complete collection of H.P. Lovecraft stories, and this night's a hardbound book, so something I've been wanting to have for a while. I have another collection of H.P. Lovecraft stories, but it's not all of them.
You got the Necronomicon?
Yes. I got the Necronomicon, I guess. Now all I need is my shiny trapezohedron.
The management in this place. You had an ant crawling on you. Delores. We should tell her. Yeah, it's on your shirt. I think it went down your back, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
There's really an ant on me?
Yeah, it's right. It's right there.
Oh. Jeez. Fucking establishment. Pest control.
Fucking Delores. Where you at,
Delores? I didn't know if you were shitting on me or...
Delores.
I didn't know if you were fucking with me or... Because, we do, it's not the first time that's happened,
No, I was being serious. Dolores
I think
is...
it's off of me. I don't see where it went on the floor.
Man, the upkeep of this place.
Man,
Jeez.
all right, let me stand up and shake off for a little.
It's going to shake off. Delores! The hell? I'll probably have a spider on me. You'll probably come crawl on me next. And then you probably hear me scream like a little girl.
Yeah, ants don't really bother me. Oh, it's on the table.
Oh, all right.
Hey, little buddy. Want some pancakes? Well, you're not going to get any from this fucking shitty place. Now he's crawling on my notes.
That's the same one. It was pretty big. He's like a little ornery fellow. Set him free. He's been set free.
Yeah. Set free. About set free as some of the characters in this movie coming up.
Oh, boy.
I just set him free. So, all right. So that's all the major hotcakes, but we're going to do some rating adjustments since it's a 10 episode. I feel like that's a good time. So, got a couple of films that I'm adjusting my rating on. Because after I ponder about this and reevaluate things, I'm like, maybe this should be a different rating. So, first off, I'm going to start with good old episode 2, Chud, the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. So, oh man, this movie, not very great. I gave it a 2.5 last time. I'm dropping it down to a 2. Because I know 2.5 is like the cutoff, like, you should probably watch this movie. You probably shouldn't watch this movie unless you're into horror and you want to, check out something that you've heard about, talked about in the pop culture before. So
I don't even know
do you have any?
I don't know what I gave it.
I have here in my notes. You also gave it a 2.5.
Oh, it's going down to 2 also.
It's going down to 2 also. Okay. I
As
remember.
much as I love David.
I remember during the episode I was trying to give it like a 3, and I'm like, what the fuck am I talking about? It's a 2.5. And
As
I'm
much
like,
as
no,
I
it's down to
love
a
Daniel
2.
Stern and John Hurd, sorry.
All right. So another one that I'm changing. This one's going up. So episode. What did I forget? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Episode 7. So. Or Christmas episode, Christmas Evil.
Oh, Christmas
so
Evil.
I'm taking Christmas Evil up from a 3 to a 3.5 because that movie is pretty solid.
I'll still leave it at the 3.
Sure. You got any ones off you remember that you want to adjust up, down, anywhere else?
Yeah, I don't think I'm in an adjustment period right
now.
now.
I almost adjusted my grade for Intruder because I gave it a 5. Not a 5 covered in syrup, but a 5. So I'm like, man, was I really overzealous on this first episode giving this thing a review? But then I was watching some other person talk about it on YouTube. Not even a horror podcast. They were just, the different.
I don't know what I gave that.
A different gaming podcast, and they were talking about.
Oh, sorry.
The one host was talking about how they watched Intruder and how they loved it and it was their favorite horror movie. And after watching, they think it's great time. I'm like, you know what? He's right. Intruder is pretty good, so I'm leaving Intruder at a good old 5.
Well, I don't even remember what I gave it.
It says here you gave it a 4.5.
Oh,
I tried to type it down and keep it in a little file.
Yeah, I'd probably leave it at
Yeah, you can leave it 4.5. Like I said, if I was going to change it, I was thinking about changing it down to a 4.5.
See, this is a great thing about life. Your opinions can change.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll have
but I'm like,
change
you know
in
what?
opinion
That
on
guy-
Halloween 2, 1981.
Oh boy.
Not now, though. No adjustment there.
But that guy talking about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick by that 5. Intruder's pretty good. So next up for hotcakes, I want to throw this out to the pancakers, all you pancakers at home listening, or flapjacks. That's right. Our fans are called flapjacks. They're flapjacks. So all the flapjacks out there.
Flapjackers. What?
Just flapjacks.
Oh, okay, sure.
So talk about some podcast episode ideas, like different things for the podcast like you'd like to see us do. Like obviously we do movie reviews, but would you like to see us do an episode where like maybe we rank films, like films in a series, that type of thing? Like maybe like talk about today's upcoming thing. You all right over there?
Those ants.
Did a cockroach scurry by you? This fucking place. I'm gonna have to call the health inspector.
Do you know the gas station next door is cleaning this?
I'm gonna have to call the health inspector and give him to check out this place.
Check your. Oh well, we never get fucking food. I was gonna say check.
Exactly. Probably got bugs in it. But anyways, like obviously we're going to be talking about, spoiler, Friday the 13th coming up here pretty soon, but like ranking the films in the Friday the 13th franchise, that type of thing, or the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, or any other franchise. That's, something that we could do.
You know what
where
else?
we want to deep dive into into every movie there. We talk about them a little bit, but just, give our thoughts and like set our, give our rankings for what we think is the worst to the best or however.
Maybe also like something maybe people wouldn't, want to do like a TV show, like maybe watch like the first 3 episodes. Or,
I definitely want to do some TV shows,
or like
sometime.
something like the horror anthology where every episode is different. Like maybe somebody wants us to watch a Twilight Zone episode or Tales from the Crypt episode.
So favorite podcast of mine that I've been getting into, the Movie Dumpster podcast. They're pretty good. Guys should check them out, but not before listening to our episodes. They have a side podcast. I don't know if it's a side podcast, but it's still under their name, their regular podcast, I think. But they call it Talks from the Dark Side, where they go through and they're talking about every episode of Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah.
It's like some of them are a bit longer, but they average like 30 minutes talking about an episode, and each episode is they talk about an episode. But I got into it because I like the Tales from the Dark Side show. We used to watch it on Chiller all the time, the reruns of it. But
Chiller. Is that thing still alive?
So yeah, that's something we could do. It's something I definitely want to do down the line. Talk about probably not in as detail as they do it, but just like you said, do 5 episodes per like normal episode on this type thing. So something, whatever you guys want to see. If you have some ideas for some different things we can do on shows, or maybe we could compare franchises. I don't want to get into like ranking like top 10 horror movies of all time because that's kind of tough and it's very subjective.
Yeah.
And I have a favorite, and then the rest of them, it's like, well, how am I going to pick one over the other type deal? Like I got a number 1, but like 2 through 10 or 2 through 25 or 2 through 50, like it's much harder to like arrange them in an order because I like a lot of things about them. It's tough comparing movies, especially great movies like that. Another thing I'd like to ask is like, so I'm, obviously we always ask you to call in and leave some voicemails or, leave some comments on our social media. But what are your thoughts on the podcast? Like some constructive criticism, what you like, what you don't like, some other stuff you like to see, like I said, with the podcast episode ideas. And also comment about some of your favorite moments so far in the podcast. Do you have any favorite moments so far, Perry?
I do like dick. I do like dick. Oh,
That is
my God.
probably
What was that? I don't know. There's a lot of funny stuff. I've been having a good time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of my favorite moments. I probably should have wrote some down, but I mean, the do like dick one is pretty classic. The Trancer 7 Chud 3 Pretty in Pink 2 sequel idea because of the OMD and then the guy that looks like Jack Death on the hobo that looks like Jack Death. I want to see that happen. I want some fan art for that. We gotta get a AJ Sabino illustration on that. Get us cover art for the sequel to all three of those films mashed together.
That'd be great.
So got 2 more things on Hotcakes. So real quick, we're going to talk about that. I almost called her a bitch. I probably just should have, but we're going to talk about that hag Delores. So now, to establish a little bit of lore here, what do you all think Delores should be or should look like? So what exactly is she? Because I have some different ideas about this. And of course, we could always have other waitresses come in and replace Delores, but is she just like some regular old hag? Kind of reminds me of like Alice in her one nightmare in A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, where she works at a diner, and then like in the nightmare she sees her up, and she's older, her face is starting to sag, wrinkles from being just being ground down.
She could be.
Is she like that? Is she just like an old hag looking lady?
She could be a Karen.
She could be.
But then we would hear it.
Yeah. Or is she like a Frankenstein monster, like the kind of like a ugly version of the Bride of Frankenstein, where she's just like cobbled together in parts and it's like, And then the other thing is, or is she like a zombie and she just kind of like moans and shuffles, and that's why the service is bad too. Like I give some ideas. I kind of just think of her as just a regular old hag, but I mean, and like I said, we could also get like an Agnes as a waitress. She must be off today. I think Agnes probably gives better service than Delores. So that was just a thought. What do you guys think she should be in the lore? Last hotcake. So Perry, are you ready for a quiz?
Okay.
Because I got a quiz for you. So this is episode 10. So we have had 10 spoiler warning entries so far.
Okay.
So this has been a gimmick I came up with well before I started making the podcast, but I always wanted to introduce a spoiler to a completely different movie than the movie we talk about as like a joke. Like it's just off the wall and you're like, what the fuck is that about? So, or, a little reference, you might actually recognize the spoiler. So we're going to run through all the spoilers real quick and see how many Perry knows. There's a lot of softball ones in this one, so I think he'll do okay, but there's some tricky ones. So we got the spoiler alert quiz. So question number 1, Perry.
All right.
So
I'm
spoiler
ready.
from the first episode. So number 1, Colonel Glover nukes Louisville.
This is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, The Return of the Living Dead.
Indeed, you are right. Perry is 1 for 1 so far. So, on to spoiler alert number 2. And these aren't going to be word for word what I said, but because I kind of just jotted them down easy here. Norman Bates is impersonating his mother.
Norman Bates is impersonating his mother. Psycho.
There you go.
Okay,
I'm like,
I
oh
just
man, that's
I
like
didn't know if
another
it was a trick
softball one.
question.
So 2 for 2. So number 3, Ben Tramer gets run over by a police officer.
Halloween 2.
You got it. Number 4, Satan is a green cylinder of swirling green goo.
Toxic Avenger, I don't know.
First slip up. So that's John Carpenter's classic, The Prince of Darkness.
Yeah. I haven't seen it.
That's all right. Number 5, I don't think you're getting this one either, but that's all right. So the nightmare becomes reality.
Titanic.
Yes, James Cameron's Titanic. No, it is Nightmare City. I believe directed by Umberto Lenzi, if I remember correctly. I could be mistaken.
Oh, is it a Giallo?
No, it's a Italian zombie.
Then I don't
film.
care. No, I'm just
Italian zombie knockoffs are pretty entertaining.
all right.
Number 6, So Perry, you are 3 out of 5 so far. So number 6, Bigfoot impregnates a woman. This is one of the funnier ones.
The Howling? I don't know.
No, it is Night of the Demon, not to be confused with Night of the Demons. 2 different films. You'll be very, very surprised if you put in the wrong Night of the Demon versus Night of the Demons.
Oh, boy.
So, Perry, you're 3 of 6 right now.
I'm horrible.
So you're bad 500.
Yep.
Oh, and I guess I should have said you guys could feel free to play along at home, too, and then let us know how well you did. So, number 7. The call is coming from inside the house. Now, as I pointed out in my thing, there's 2 movies that specifically say that line. However, and it's been used in a lot of other things. I mean, the answer's not Scream, but Scream has, the calls are coming from inside the house. But specifically, that line is said. And so this one, also, John Saxon is a terrible police officer. Still.
House on Haunted Hill, I don't know.
No, so it is Black Christmas. The original.
I watched some of that too, damn it.
It's all right. Number 8. A severed head tries to go down on Barbara Crampton.
Is that Reanimator?
It is Reanimator.
Right.
I was going to say, if you got that one, because I talked about it extensively in the last episode, I think. So number 9. Eric Stoltz bangs Princess Vespa.
Spaceballs the movie.
No.
No?
So I left off this part. Seth Brundle's son, Eric Stoltz, bangs Princess Vespa. Can you get it now? It's okay if you can't get it.
I don't know.
So the answer is The Fly 2. I almost just wanted to leave it at Eric Stoltz bangs Princess Vespa when I wrote the spoiler. But when I record, I'm like, I'll throw in the Seth Brundle's son thing. People will be more familiar with it. And then finally, number 10, the spoiler alert for this episode. I haven't recorded yet, but this is going to be it. So I've been saving this one for a while. Spoiler alert, number 10. Angela has a wiener.
I do like Dick. Does this movie have baldies? I'm sorry. Baldies in it?
It might have.
I'm sorry.
Might have a creepy.
The always fun to watch Sleepaway Camp.
You got it. So good old Sleepaway Camp. The original spoiler that maybe came up with this idea for the random spoiler opening, because you say Angela has a wiener and people will be like, what the fuck? And then you talk, then you talk about a completely different movie. So let's see, let's tally it up again. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like. 5 out of 10.
Still bad 500.
Still bad 500.
All
not
right.
bad, not bad.
We'll see if I can get that on the back 10 to the 20.
We'll check out like you said. We'll have to do that again sometime, let them pile up again. But that was a fun little time with our hotcakes. Did little things different for our big 10th episode anniversary special.
Awesome.
And oh boy, we got a doozy of a movie for you here. Got an iconic classic horror film that we'll be talking about today. None other than Friday the 13th. 1980, the original version. Produced and directed by Sean S. Cunningham. With special makeup effects by Tom Savini. Music by Harry Manfredini. Associate producer by Stephen Miner, who would go on to direct other entries in the franchise.
Screenplay by Victor Miller.
Yep, written by Victor Miller, who tied up the series and the franchise in a big lawsuit for a long time, which has finally been kind of settled, I think. So maybe we might, for better or for worse, be getting some new Friday the 13th content. I know it killed a lot of the future DLC plans for the mediocre video game that came out several years ago.
Is he a playable character in Dead by Daylight?
Jason, no.
Okay.
Like almost every other big horror icon is, but not Jason.
Okay.
So this film, it stars Betsy Palmer, Adrian King, Janine Taylor, Robbie Morgan, Footloose's Kevin Bacon, Harry Crosby, Lauren Bartram, Mark Nelson, Peter Brower, Walt Gorney, the infamous Walt Gorney, and Ari Lehman.
And Harry Crosby, the son of Bing Crosby.
Yes. Did I not write down Harry Crosby?
I don't think.
I wrote it down. I had him after Kevin Bacon. I don't know if I said his name, though.
I think you got too excited.
I might have skipped him.
You got too excited.
Probably. Got real excited about Kevin Bacon.
6 degrees of separation, Rocco.
Are we going to have 6 degrees of separation for Friday the 13th?
I don't.
We could probably do it.
So I'm linked to Kevin Bacon somehow through this. That's right. Isn't that right? That's how you're linked to Kevin Bacon, right? By 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, like you're trying to go from movie A back to Kevin Bacon somehow, right?
No, I thought it's how he's linked to you. I don't know.
I thought the game was like you're listing like 6 movies.
Oh, yeah,
to get back to
I
Kevin
think you
Bacon,
can
to
do-
get back to a Kevin Bacon movie.
It's gonna be. Yeah, we should not do that here.
I'm trying to think. So you always start off with Kevin Bacon is in this movie with this person, and they go to the next movie, right?
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe we can do it. Do you think we can do it?
I probably need help. I don't really know these
All right.
other actors.
All right, I'm gonna kick it off. All right, let me try to do this. So Kevin Bacon, he's in Friday the 13th with Walt Gorney. Walt Gorney is in Friday the 13th Part 2 with Amy Steele. Amy Steele is in April Fool's Day. All right, now we gotta tie in April Fool's Day to somebody.
Only guy I know is Tom F. Wilson. I know he wasn't.
Sure, Tom F.
Look,
Wilson.
Tom F.
Tom F. Wilson is
was
in Back to the Future.
Sure, with Crispin.
No, hold on.
Maybe use Crispin Glover. I don't know. Or Strickland. Crispin Glover. I don't know.
I'm trying to tie it back. Christopher Lloyd, maybe?
Oh yeah, that might work.
I'm trying to think of movies people were in. All right, enough of that. I give up. My movie knowledge is not good enough to do that. So, all right. Anyways, so let's dive into the movie here. Dive into our plot summary. Well, 6 degrees of our way out of this. So we open on a cloudy full moon entertainment night. Crickets chirping, owls hooting as we pan onto a dock in summer camp. Camp Crystal Lake in 1958, to be exact, as the title card informs us. Inside one of these cabins, it's like the main lodge cabin, a bunch of counselors are around a campfire. One of them playing guitar while they sing Kumbaya and shit. But outside, someone enters Fox cabin and cue the first ever playing of Ma as the score starts to play, building the suspense as we get a POV shot from someone walking around the cabin. Back with the counselors after they finish their current song. A couple get up from the group and leave, cutting to another shot of the Full Moon Entertainment logo. And the two of them, they head into a kind of looks like a barn. And they go upstairs to do the good old hunka chunka. But we cut back to downstairs to a POV shot. The score starts up again slowly as the person creeps up the stairs. Once at the top, the counselors realize that somebody is there, and they quickly button up their shirts as the person reaches the top floor to confront them.
And we got titties there.
I don't know if we got titties.
I thought we saw at least maybe one teat.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's tough to notice. I didn't write it down because he's kind of like blocking
careful.
her.
But yeah.
What?
What?
All right. The guy, as he buckles up his belt, tries to tell the person that they weren't doing anything. Honest. But the person doesn't want to hear any of his lame excuses, and we have kill number 1. This guy is stabbed in the gut and collapses to the ground, holding his bloody wound. The girl who's left tries to run as the score goes into high gear, but she's cornered upstairs by the killer. In a last-ditch effort, she hurls boxes at the killer with no effect, and we have kill number 2. Freeze frame. Click, 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 click.
Dun,
Do,
dun.
do, 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 do.
Yeah, I forget this. I forget it.
The camera. So yeah, freeze frame. The camera goes into
I
slow
got it.
motion.
J. Giles, man. I got it.
There you go. As she screams, eventually freezing and zooming in on an image of her screaming and terrified face before the killer can do her in off screen as the screen turns to white. And then we are greeted by the Friday the 13th title card as it zooms in from the background and flies towards the screen, shattering glass as it finally fills the entire screen with Harry Manfredini's score playing in all of its glory. Now, Perry, were you worried that your TV screen actually shattered at this awesomeness?
No.
No? I thought it might scare
I
you.
actually found this weird. Like, the way it's stylized could be compared to the movie cover. I'm like,
Yeah.
it looks like a Twilight Zone-esque kind of thing. I'm like,
So this also begins the epic logo/title card sequences of the early Friday the 13th franchise, where they all kind of fly towards the screen and do something. So after the opening credits, we cut to Friday the 13th in the present, 1980, as a woman carrying a backpack walks into a rural, oh, I can't say that word today, rural town. She stops by a gas station to pet a dog sitting at the pumps and asks it how far it is to Camp Crystal Lake. I'm like, what? Could she understand this dog like people could understand Lassie? What's that, Lassie? Jason fell into Crystal Lake? That probably would have been helpful to her if she would have known that by now.
This girl's weird.
Also, this place sells leaded gasoline, The late 70s and early 80s when you could still get leaded gasoline.
Would it be cheaper than gas now?
It's not a bad question, Bert.
Ah.
I don't have a soundbite. We'll get him. So she strolls further into town into a local diner.
Hold on a second.
Sure. Stopping you. Or stopping me.
I got to tell you, we got payphone.
We do have a payphone. You got it. We got another payphone later. I don't think
Yeah,
you
we
see
do.
it, though.
We have
It's
two
off screen, isn't it?
There's 2 payphones in this
Yep.
movie. Yeah. Well, because, we'll get there eventually, but good.
So she strolls into this local diner and asks the people inside, how far is it to Camp Crystal Lake? And they all go silent and give her the look. Not like Roxette, but a dirty look. Man, that's 2 musical references in one episode. How many more can I jam in? The waitress, who looks like a Delores type, don't give me that look over there, Delores. You know you're fucking ugly. Ask Enos if it's about 20 miles.
Penis?
No, just Enos.
Oh, okay.
I should play the soundbite here, but I'm not going to. Ask Enos if it's about 20 miles, to which he concurs, while another customer at the counter chimes in asking if they are opening Camp Blood up again. And I'm not sure it's just called that because the lake has a reddish hue to it. The Crystal Lake moniker might be a bit ironic of a name. Maybe, it's like one of those lakes that, has a red tint to it, and that's why they call it Camp Blood.
So I think this could be the reason why...
I'm just joking, though.
Oh, okay.
You could go ahead, say your bit.
Well, I mean, why they use the word Camp Blood is because the screenplay initially had the title of this movie, but they didn't intend to keep it. A Long Night at Camp Blood.
Yeah, I remember reading something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's been the nickname for it throughout the franchise. I was just making a joke that maybe Crystal Lake is just ironic and it's actually like a dirty fucking red-colored lake.
Wouldn't his name be Enos, not Enos?
Nah, it's Enos.
All right.
He's got, like a good old boy name, Enos. Also, while Enos is probably a stereotypical yokel name, see, I was going to talk about this next. This guy doesn't look like an Enos to me. You know what I mean? He just doesn't look like an Enos. Like I feel like Enos would have a lot of missing teeth, very thin, like slack-jawed yokel. Kind of like Cletus from The Simpsons. Like that's what I more expect to see from an Enos. So Annie, as we find out her name here, inquires if there is a bus. But there is not, but Enos here, he offers to give her a lift halfway to the crossroads. Before they can get to Enos's truck, though, they're stopped by Crazy Ralph, played by Walt Gorney. He asks him, "You're going to Camp Blood, ain't ya?" Enos tries to shoo him away, but Ralph tells her, "You'll never come back alive." And then he utters his iconic line, "It's got a death curse," before they walk away. So Enos remarks to Annie that he's a real prophet of doom, ain't he? As they get into the truck and drive off. And, of course, these prophets of doom are a common cliche in the slasher subgenre of horror films.
Mm-hmm.
So also the truck says it's from New Jersey. And due to other clues coming up, we can conclude that Camp Crystal Lake is in New Jersey. For now. Till it gets retconned to wherever they need it to be. During the ride, Enos asks Annie if the camp owner and her boss, Steve Christie, told her anything about what happened. He warns her to quit because the camp is jinxed, informing her about the 2 kids that were killed in 1958, several fires, and the boy who drowned in 1957. I'm sure that none of this information is going to have any relevance to the rest of the film. Wink, wink. No one knows who did any of this. He also adds that in 1962, when they were going to open up, the water was bad. I'm like, maybe that's where the Camp Blood nickname comes from. Maybe. Maybe somebody spilled a bunch of red dye or chemicals in the water. And yes, I know, I'm sure he means the well water went bad. So Enos thinks that Christie is crazy for trying to reopen the camp and is going to end up broke like his folks before him, and reiterates that she should quit, but she says she can't. So Enos remarks, "Dumb kids, know-it-alls," to which she quips that he is an American original, and that at least she isn't afraid of ghosts. And I'm like, Annie, you'll have to wait until part 6 for this franchise to become supernatural, okay? With ghosts and shit, and resurrected Jasons. So also, I love that American original line for some reason. And I would totally buy an Enos t-shirt with that phrase print on it. Just big old picture of Enos and says, "An American original, Enos." So they pull up to the crossroads located next to Moravian Cemetery in Hope, New Jersey. Another New Jersey clue. And lets her off as he heads back on his way. So we cut to a truck.
Hold on a sec. So, fact about these scenes with Enos and Annie, Rex Everett and Robbie Morgan. So this was not filmed with them together. They filmed them for some reason. They couldn't film them together, and so Robbie was just like talking to some like imaginary driver. They think it's the Tasso Star Vegas. I don't know what he did in the film, but like, so she's just saying her lines to like,
Yeah, because
nobody.
the way it's shot too,
Yeah.
you can tell the camera person's probably sitting in the other seat. So that makes sense that the other actor wouldn't be able to be sitting next to them when they're shooting it like that.
Yeah, obviously, but yeah.
But yeah, it's funny that he wasn't there at all.
Also, I gotta ask you,
Sure.
where the fuck is she walking from?
I have no idea.
Is she hitchhiking like
Must
to
be.
this camp?
I don't know how far away she lives to get to this camp, but that's
And then she's just
it's not a
walking
bad question,
down
Bert.
some like random bum ass road into a gas station, talking to a
Very
dog.
true. No, it's not the gas station next door, is it?
No.
Okay. I feel like we should establish what gas station is. We'll have to pick a famous gas station.
Famous gas station.
From a
What's the
movie.
one in Maximum Overdrive? We'll do that one.
Well, that one also got destroyed.
Well, so it's rebuilt.
Maybe. I was thinking either that one. There's one in John Carpenter's Body Bags, or there's the gas station from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I
Or we
don't know
could-
if we want that one.
We
next
could do the
door.
one from Tusk and Yoga Hosers.
Oh, jeez. All right,
The
moving on.
The A to Z.
We're going off the rails, unlike the Terror Train. So we cut to a truck driving down the road, playing country music, some good old banjo. And inside is Ned, Marcy, and her boyfriend, Kevin Bacon, who plays Jack.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon. So Ned asks if there are going to be any other good-looking women there. And she asks if sex is all he thinks about. I'm like, trust me, Marcy, Ned has his priorities straight here. So they arrive at Camp Crystal Lake, established 1935, as the sign lets us know. And then we cut to a middle-aged, shirtless guy with glasses on. And he's got a bandana around his neck, maybe an ascot. And he's chopping wood. Perry likes it when guys chop their wood.
Please. I do like dick.
So it's camp owner Steve Christie, and he's trying to remove a stump. I keep trying to remove a stump from this podcast, too. Oh, I missed the button. God damn it. All right. Well, I missed the button. All right. So Steve Christie is rocking one of those 70s porn stashes. So do you like 70 porn stashes, mustaches, Perry?
I like my mustache.
Man, you didn't fall into the trap. You're terrible. Well, it's certainly better than yours. Ba-doom-ching.
No, it isn't.
See, I just entered my own sound effect. That way I don't have to worry about missing hitting this button. The gang pulls up and pile out and help him remove the stump, while Alice comes outside from one of the cabins, and Christy introduces her to them. So Steve, Alice, and the others already there have been fixing up the camp and getting it ready for its big opening. So next we cut to Alice, and she's trying to attach a gutter to a roof of one of the cabins, and Christy comes up to help hold it while she hammers the nails in. So he picks up her sketchbook and flips through looking at her work and compliments her on it. Don't worry, this will most likely be completely forgotten about until the sequel. Her artistic ability.
Adrienne King, though, that's her.
Mm-hmm.
That was Alice, right?
Yes.
They decided to include that because she did like to do artwork on
There
the
you
side.
go. That's cool.
They wanted to put that in the film there.
So he tells her she's very talented and very pretty. I'm like, whoa, keep it in your pants, Weinstein. This is an HR nightmare waiting to happen. So apparently Alice doesn't want to stay at the camp, giving the lame and vague excuse that she may have to go back to California to straighten something out.
California.
I feel like we need that soundbite too.
You're a wizard.
Wizard. So Chrissy asks her to give him another chance and to give it at least a week before making up her mind. She agrees, and he caresses her hair and thanks her before leaving. Seriously, Weinstein, hands to yourself. This also kind of seems to allude that there may have been kind of sort of something between them at one point, but it's not really elaborated on too much. So we cut to Alice hustling through the woods as we get a shot from the camera behind a tree, watching and panning as she walks by to talk to Bill at the dock. Cueing Manfredini's score to chime in softly with the piano, dun dun. So iconic of music in this. So after she asks him if he needs more paint, Bill asks if everyone has arrived yet, and Alice lets him know that only the cook, Anna, hasn't arrived yet. So she leaves, and we cut back to Annie. Yeah, the stupid autocorrect. So, yeah, Annie. She leaves, and we cut back to the POV behind the triangle, with the score kicking in again. So next, the gang is huddled around Christy's Jeep, and he's giving them instructions before leaving, and tells them he'll be back sometime after lunch, and that it's going to rain like hell, so get as much done as possible. And then he just drives off. So as he drives off, Ned chimes in that he forgot to mention to them that the people downtown call this place Camp Blood. And then Marcy comments, next you're going to tell us there are poisonous snakes in the outhouses. I don't think that is going to come up later at all.
Nope.
Wink.
Definitely not.
So at the archery range, Brenda is setting up a target, but after she sets it down, an arrow comes flying through and hits the target, shot by Ned, who proclaims, "Ta-da!" Pissed off, Brenda asks if he's crazy, to which Ned replies, "Do you want to see my trick shot?" And he grabs like 3 arrows like he's going to try and shoot them all at once. Like he's motherfucking Hawkeye or something.
So fun fact here, Tom Savini, he's the one that shot that arrow.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
He then walks up to her and does a Humphrey Bogart impression saying, "You know, you're beautiful when you're angry, sweetheart." I think that's from Casablanca, maybe? I'm not sure. I can't remember if I looked it up or not.
You got me.
So she threatens him that if he tries again, she's going to tack him to a wall to dry, to which he quips that he loves that sexy talk. And Ned's our prankster here for this film. So meanwhile, we cut to Annie, and she's walking down the street, not singing doo-wah diddy diddy da diddy do.
Manfred Mann.
As a Jeep comes from behind, and she sticks her thumb out, and it stops to give her a lift. A Jeep.
It's a lift Jeep? Lift?
I don't think so.
They didn't have lifts back then?
No, they didn't have lifts back then.
Oh.
So she hops in and tells the driver, who we don't see, that she's heading to Camp Crystal Lake. So they're driving on down the road, and Annie is trying to bore the driver to death with all of her small talk about wanting to work with children. However, as the entrance to Camp Crystal Lake approaches, the Jeep doesn't slow down and just passes up. Annie asks, "Wasn't that the road to Camp Crystal Lake back there?" Well, if you hadn't been distracting the driver with your stupid small talk, they might not have missed the turn. So at that moment, the score starts up with a burp burp. And Annie tells the driver that she thinks they better stop. Please? But the driver's having none of it and puts the pedal to the metal. So, Annie, she eventually bails out of the car, and she hurts her leg in the process because she realized something's wrong. So she gets out and jumps out. And that's why you're supposed to tuck and roll when you jump out of a car. She didn't pay attention. She should know better. So she takes off into the woods, but the Jeep backs up slowly, and the driver gets out to pursue with the score intensifying to chase mode. So Annie stumbles through the forest with her pursuer in tow, but we never get a look at the unknown assailant, except from the waist down. The score stops as Annie stumbles along, but she stumbles her way right into the killer, which cues a Tempo magazine stinger and jump scare as she trips and falls at the killer's feet, with the score going into a continuous high-pitched screeching as she slowly stands up. We have kill number 3, cutthroat camping. The killer raises a hunting knife and slices Annie's throat, with blood spewing forth from the gaping wound as she slowly collapses to the forest floor as the screen fades to white. Now note that, so I should also point out that I watched the unrated cut. Perry, you watched the theatrical cut because that's the only extra copy I had available for you. Yeah. I don't know if you could find the unrated cut anywhere outside of on streaming.
I think I was able to rent it on
were you?
Prime.
But so I believe that in the regular theatrical cut, at least on the TV edits too, because you catch this on TV all the time, it doesn't linger on the effects for very, very long. Her throat gets slit and then it just cuts away. Is that what happened in the theatrical?
Yeah.
It just goes and then it cuts away real quick.
No, actually, they show it.
Did it? Did it linger on it a long time though?
No, I mean, I think there's blood coming down.
So if you want to see all the kills in their their gory greatness,
it might cut
unfortunately, Perry, I should have told you to look up the clips online to see like the unrated ones, but you could probably find a video real quick and watch them. Just put your phone on mute just to see them. You don't need any of the sound for it. So yeah, if you want to see all these kills in their gory greatness, watch the unrated cut. Also, the effects work is impressive as always from Tom Savini. But unfortunately, the upgrade to HD and Blu-ray have made it easier to tell the difference in some spots in the flesh tones on the makeup versus the real skin, which would have probably been unnoticeable in theaters back in the day or older formats because of the, being filmed on film. But it doesn't take away from how fantastic the effects are, though. So back at Camp Blood, the counselors don't seem to be getting a lot of work done as they are on the dock lying around and swimming. These counselors are terrible. Steve Christie should kill them all and replace them. Oh, wait. Also, Kevin Bacon's in a Speedo with his bacon bits. Don't get too excited over there, Perry.
Oh, my God. I do like Dick.
Oh.
I knew that was coming.
I thought Kevin Bacon would have been a bit bigger.
Wow.
He's pretty famous there. I mean, dude, his bulge is just right there, like right smack dab in your face.
I'm not looking at it, so...
You can't miss it. He's just standing there. It's
bulging
out, and you're like, what the fuck? So as they're on the dock, we got a POV shot from the killer's perspective, lifting a branch to get a better view of the body count, with the iconic and chilling score kicking in. So a couple of the counselors play a game of Where's Waldo with a forest shot, but can't find the killer. They do manage to find his missing shoe, his cap, and the wizard, though. That's some more Where's Waldo randomness there. So their consolation prize for finding those things will be a swift death, I'm sure. So finally, one of the counselors says it's time to get back to work. As the rest of them get up, we get a shot of Kevin Bacon's bulging bacon. Perry!
Stop it with it.
Before they can get back to work, Ned is still in the water and cries for help. Could it be the killer's work? It's probably some sort of muck creature devouring him. Didn't they see the sign that said no swimming? I don't know if you get that reference.
Jaws? I don't know.
It's a Creepshow 2 reference. You know, the scene, no swimming, and they go swimming anyways. Well, it pans over and shows the sign at the end, but,
okay.
Muck Monster. So the gang jump in and swim to find him, with others getting on a canoe to assist. So they pull him out from under the water and get him on the dock, and Marcy starts to perform CPR. But this was all an elaborate prank by Ned as he pulls her in and kisses her. The good old prankster archetype. But the killer is still watching from the woods, and cue that ki ma 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 again. Back in one of the cabins, Alice is drying off and picking out clothes. But little does she know there is a snake on the floor by the dresser, which jumps when she forcefully closes the dresser drawer. So see, it was in a cabin and not in the outhouse. So she screams and yells for help as the snake slithers under the furniture. Bill runs in with a machete, slowly followed by others as they try to look for the snake. So Kevin Bacon decides he's going to flush it out and jumps on the bed, which causes it to collapse as more furniture goes flying in the pandemonium to find the snake. Eventually, the snake comes out, and Bill raises his machete and cuts off the snake's head. And, about that.
Actually,
do you want to talk about this scene? Because I know what it is.
Yeah, actually. So okay, this is filmed at an actual camp called Camp Nobi Bosco in New Jersey. And
you tell me it wasn't Camp Cucamonga?
No.
Okay.
Most of the cast and crew, they slept at hotels, right? But except Tom Savini and Tasso and Stavrakis, they stayed out to camp. And I guess Tom Savini had an idea. I don't know if he encountered it or what. He had an idea that, we should put a snake in this film. And the reason they wanted to have like this mini scare in the film was to kind of separate it from Halloween, the Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was his idea. I guess he called some kind of snake handler, and he asked if he could borrow a snake. Then she kills a snake. That's a real snake. They killed a snake. And the snake handler was apparently sobbing afterwards.
I didn't know that part. I knew they killed a real snake.
That's
which is
Tom
interesting. I thought it might have just been some random snake they found.
No, people think it came from the woods. No, Tom Savini contacted the snake handler.
That's
and
funny.
he never told him he was going to kill it. He's like, hey, I just need to borrow a snake or something.
It's also, so I know like animal cruelty and stuff like that.
Which
that makes it worse because it was like an owned snake.
PETA.
Yeah.
It was big back then.
Yeah, it's a bit strange because, I mean, if it was a random wild snake, okay, that's one thing because it also could legitimately be poisonous. I don't know why'd you put a random poisonous snake in a cabin and tell people action. I mean, it's interesting because you do get to see a real thing, which is a very real reaction, what people would do with a real snake.
Yeah,
but
that's what they wanted
use a fake snake
to show a group, the group of people trying to
right. Because I mean, so I understand the real reaction to it, and yes, sure, yeah, they killed the snake. They probably shouldn't have done that. Yeah, the animal cruelty probably isn't cool, but I mean, it's a realistic effect because they killed a real snake.
I mean, it was a different time then, so it might have been.
It was a different time. Anyways, moving on from that awkward and slightly uncomfortable scene. So Alice stupidly asks if it's dead. I'm like, geez, Alice, and you're going to be our final girl? To which Ned replies, either that or it has a really short clone. Groan. Which is followed up by another groan-inducing joke from Marcy saying, at least we know what's for dinner. So outside, see, you thought I made groan-inducing jokes too. I could be writing Friday the 13th here, people. Outside, Marcy and Brenda are walking when a police officer pulls up in his motorcycle. At the same time, Ned is shirtless, with his shirt wrapped around his groin to represent a loincloth, while wearing a Native American headdress and making the woo-woo-woo-woo-woo, noises. I'm like, oh boy, we got some cultural appropriation here.
Yeah, it's a different time then.
Definitely a different time. Definitely probably a bit inappropriate, but I don't know, it was a different time. Also, there is a lot of filler in this. But I do think it kind of works. Like, none of these scenes have seemed too dull or boring, like how some filler is in movies. And I also think there isn't as much in it as people think or I remember there is being too much filler in it. So the officer, he dismounts his bike to ask where Steve Christie is. And Ned tries to say he was just fooling around, but the officer tells him to can it goat cheese. I think I just found my new insult for Delores. Goat cheese over there. Hey, goat cheese, where's my fucking pancakes? So Kevin Bacon comes up and he's checking out the motorcycle, but the officer accuses him of being on drugs. You know, Colombian gold, man, grass, hash, the weed, dig it. Colombian gold.
This is the weirdest freaking
This guy is pretty weird. I like him, though. So after that exchange, the officer tells him he's looking for Crazy Ralph, who is supposedly heading this way. To which Ned makes another joke, and the officer replies, I told you to sit on it, Tonto. I'm like, that's a bit racist.
I'm like, again, I was like, I'm like, oh, we probably can't do that again.
Yep, can't say that joke anymore. So it's more of a hassle thing for the officer than a legitimate concern, since he has to spend the day in court to put Ralph in jail for a week.
That's how it works where they are.
Yep. Yeah, he's kind of like the what was that guy from the Andy Griffith Show? Is that Otis, the drunk that always Opie? No, Opie's the kid. Opie's the less talented Howard brother. Oh, not Barney Fife. That's the other officer. Who is the guy? Is it Otis? Is Otis the guy that's always the town drunk and they lock him up for the night and then let him out? I can't remember his name.
I don't know, man.
So the officer gets a call on his radio telling him to come back into town. So he gets ready to leave and tells the kids to behave, finishing with, we ain't going to stand for no weirdness out here. In this like southern accent. I'm like, dude, this is supposed to be like New Jersey. Why is this guy like the only person with like a southern accent? So then he goes to leave and does the most awkward turnaround in a motorcycle ever. I'm like, does this guy actually know how to ride that thing?
It's really
like, you know what I mean? Like, I understand it's like gravelly and it's like wood, so, but yeah, I'm like, man, that guy has no idea how to drive that. Not saying I'd do better, but I mean, just you could tell by watching him use it. So back inside the main cabin.
I got something here though.
Sure.
Real quick. Not so much but about the scene. Some people didn't think they should have that scene there because they kind of wanted to make Camp Crystal Lake like not very accessible. Like some people thought maybe having that scene in there, it may seem like more accessible so the police could get there fast and like that. But that's not the case.
I still think it works. It's kind of off the beaten trail.
Yeah, it's
plus, he's only out that way because they heard Crazy Ralph was coming out that way. So he's going to check up and see, well, there's only one random place out here, and it's the camp, so let me stop at the camp and check it out.
I didn't think it did anything to it. Yeah, people were afraid it did. I didn't, so yeah.
Back inside the main cabin, Alice is cleaning up and opens the doors to a storage/pantry closet. But inside is Crazy Ralph, which causes a Tempo magazine stinger to fly through the air and her to scream and drops the pot she was carrying. So he steps out and states that he is a messenger of God and you're doomed if you stay here, and telling them the place has, wait for it, a death curse. So after his prophetic warning to them, he gets on his bicycle and rides away with eerie music playing, but not before reiterating to Alice, who is watching him at the doorway, that they are all doomed. Back inside, the gang is making dinner while wondering why Annie never showed up. Alice inspects a light bulb and tries to turn it on, but the bulb is either bad or the power is out, perhaps due to the lousy town power lines. As a result, they go to turn on the emergency generator, to establish this location for later on in the movie. Mm-hmm. So Kevin Bacon starts up that generator as if it were a tractor that he is going to use to play the greatest game of chicken ever, all while some Bonnie Tyler's playing in the background to set the mood.
All right.
It's like the most ridiculous scene in Footloose ever. But I love it.
I've yet to see that movie.
It's the greatest and dumbest fucking scene in
I
that
haven't
movie.
seen that movie.
It's something else. It's not.
I've recently just seen Top
best.
Gun for the first time. Honestly, not that great, but
Yeah.
we'll have to watch the sequel.
Yeah. I've heard the sequel's really good, though.
Yeah.
Not to talk about non-horror stuff, but yeah, Top Gun, I've watched most of it on TV. It's just like, yeah. It's more about the actual training and the camaraderie of the group than the actual dogfighting, which I always never knew about, so it could be disappointing if you go into it with that regard, hoping to see there's a lot of good fighter work in that movie, not to get off topic here, but there's not a whole lot of actual dog fighting and shooting down other jet planes until the end.
It ain't no Red Tails. We fight.
Oh, jeez.
All
right. Back to where we're at. So yeah. So we cut to a beaver swimming in the lake as Kevin Bacon and Marcy wander off for him to see her beaver. Heyo. So Ned, he's watching them from a distance, and then he wanders off. But someone is watching him from one of the cabins, and the creepy score kicks in. And Ned sees the person and calls out hello, but they duck out of sight. The person is also perfectly obstructed behind some branches, but in the HD, you can kind of sort of see a person a little bit better because of the detail. I don't think you can really tell who it is, though, but you can definitely see some clothing on them, which isn't the biggest reveal. Like, you can kind of make out a face, but I'm not sure whose face it was. It could have just been like a stunt person for all I know. So Ned heads to investigate inside the cabin. Big mistake. Back outside, Kevin Bacon and Marcy notice that a storm is coming. Marcy goes into a deep dive about how she's scared of thunderstorms, and she has this reoccurring nightmare where rain from a thunderstorm turns to blood. She calls it her shower dream. A bit of foreshadowing, perhaps? I'm like, Marcy, leave the nightmares to another slasher franchise, okay? Also, you gotta love those thunder and lightning effects. I mean, they obviously don't look like real thunder and lightning, but I love those old school thunder and lightning effects where it's just like bright flashes that don't really quite capture what lightning looks like, what a flash of lightning looks like. I love that type of stuff. I love those old effects.
It was cheesy, but
I love that stuff
worked.
just because that's how they had to do it back then. So with the thunderstorm closing in, they head into a cabin, and they get comfortable in the bottom bunk of a bunk bed for Kevin Bacon to give Marcy his bacon. So back with the others at the main lodge. They're hanging around as Bill's playing some guitar, but Brenda proposes they play a game of Monopoly. But not just any Monopoly. Strip Monopoly, where you pay rent with clothes instead of Monopoly bucks. Although after watching this game, I still feel like there are rules left out that I'm not getting. Like, how exactly does it work? Like, can you pay somebody else with a piece of their clothing after you get it, or is it just like in your bank?
No, if they land on your, if you own the deed to that land, or whatever the card is.
Yeah, you get clothing. But like, how much clothing do you get for a house or a motel? Like, is it scaled? Like, are the higher properties, like, you get more clothing?
I don't know.
And also, like I said, can you pay somebody else in their clothing? Like, okay, you can have your sock back, or how's it work? Or is it like once your clothes is off, it stays off? The only rule I do know is that you don't get clothes back for pass and go. That's the only rule I know. So, anyways, back with Marcy and Kevin Bacon. He's plowing her straight on like a tractor staring down another tractor in a game of chicken. How many Footloose references can I make in this review? Also, we got titties, and we also got Kevin Bacon's butt. So we can add it to my ever-growing list of celebrity man-asses I never wanted to see but did. Not that Kevin Bacon isn't a handsome man. Didn't need to see his butt.
You don't want to see his butt?
No.
You see his butt in Hollow Man.
Yes, you do.
Lot. You see his butt a lot in that movie.
A lot, yeah. In this one, it's just a brief frame. It's not, like, super long.
We should do Hollow Man one time.
Yeah, it's horror related. It's an Invisible Man story.
Anyways.
But we slowly pan to the top bunk. I remember watching it like at the drive-in Hollow Man.
Yeah.
It was interesting at the time. I don't know how well the effects hold up.
Yeah.
But we slowly pan to the top bunk above them, and that cues a Tempo magazine stinger as we have kill number 4. Ned lies dead in the top bunk above with his throat slit. Now, while he is obstructed by the duffel bags up top, you can see the duffel bags behind him. And other stuff, which kind of explains why they didn't see him. But still, how did they not see him when they came in? The shots before clearly established that they are taller than the top bunk.
I don't know, maybe the killer tucked them in well.
It's a flaw I can forgive in the movie, but it's a funny observation. Anyways, they're oblivious to this, and Kevin Bacon just can't stop plowing her. Like his shoelaces are caught on something and he can't get off on her. Or can't get off of her. That's another track.
I think he did get off on her. But
well, yeah, he did get off on her, but that's another Footloose scene. Or same scene. He's trying to actually jump off the tractor and get the hell out of the way, but his shoelaces are caught on the tractor, the foot pedal, so he's trying, and the other guy just thinks like, this guy's fucking crazy, he's actually going to run into me, but Kevin Bacon's trying to jump off the fucking tractor and concede defeat, but his foot is literally stuck. Funniest thing was a comment on that scene on YouTube, somebody put, I guess he couldn't get his foot loose. I'm like, that comment won the internet for the day.
Yeah.
Back at the lodge, they're just getting ready to start the game of Strip-Monopoly, to which Alice responds that she's not going to pass go without a glow, and she's got it's either a cigarette or maybe it's pot.
I think it's pot.
I think it's more like pot, because, glow, getting high. As she brings them some beers, too.
Or whatever that cop code is like.
Also, those are some strange-looking beer bottles. You know, how they had those glass rounded kind of bottles. They look really weird and different compared to today's stuff.
Yeah,
but
they definitely
not a Walnut Lake brand generic beer. It's definitely I think it's Budweiser.
What did they advertise a lot in that? Diet
Pepsi? Yeah.
Pepsi. Have a Diet Pepsi.
So Brenda goes first and rolls double sixes, and they think they are being hustled. I'm like, yeah, you morons. Because she clearly rolled a 2 and a 1 for 3. She's treating right in front of your faces. You deserve to end up naked. So back with Kevin Bacon and Marcy. They're cuddling after coitus with him cupping a breast. She leaves to go pee, so Kevin Bacon lays back down in bed and puts his shirt back on and kicks back and relaxes as he waits for his death scene. Meanwhile, that strip Monopoly game is getting heated as Alice buys Baltic Avenue. Bill tells her nobody ever lands on Baltic Avenue. And well, technically, it is one of the least landed on spaces in the game. Remember, people, you always want the spaces of people coming out of jail, because everybody's got to go to jail sometimes in that stupid game. But he rolls and gets an 8, putting him right on Baltic Avenue, except he clearly rolled double 5s. Are we just moving our pieces however we feel like? Can I just do that next time we play a board game? I'm just like Trivial Pursuit, where I just roll a fucking die. It's like, oh, I rolled a 5. I'm going to move 3 spaces and land on, try to guess a pie piece.
I don't know. For how many roll-agains are on the board?
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's a roll-again space. I'm just going to roll again. It's like, that's clearly not a roll-again space. You're not landing on a roll-again space. She draws first blood, as Brenda puts it, and Bill has to fork over one of his boots. While Bill goes on a beer run, Kevin Bacon is lying in bed and lights up a post-sex cigarette. But something from the bunk above drips onto his forehead. He inspects it to see it's blood. Before he can do anything, a Tempo magazine sticker kicks in. There's a lot of those here. And we have kill number 5, arrowed. A hand reaches out from underneath the bed, grabbing Bacon's forehead and jamming an arrow through the bed in his throat. So I know this is definitely one of the best additions to the unrated cut, as I know the theatrical cut just shows the side shot of the arrow going through his neck. Am I correct?
Like it's filmed from the side?
Yes.
Yeah, and you see it come up
yes.
through his neck. Yeah.
Yes. So in the unrated cut, it cuts back to an overhead shot with the arrow through him, a front view of him, and it's just fucking pumping blood, tons of blood out through the wound and spewing everywhere. Plus, from this scene, we also get a better shot of the killer's arm, revealing that they are wearing this flannel shirt. And like I said, there may have been one shot earlier with Annie where we see the flannel as well when the killer goes to slice the throat of Annie. You might catch a glimpse of the flannel shirt on the arm.
Can't find where I read this, but apparently they had like only one take to film the scene.
I remember you telling me this.
They were having something went wrong with like the pump with the blood. Like I don't think it was supposed to spew it out that much, but it didn't. I didn't see the uncensored version. Obviously, you probably enjoyed it, and they were worried like the guy's like crap because they was trying to like pump it and it wasn't like working, and then it just went like everywhere, and it actually probably turned out for the better. I'm trying to find it. I can't read it.
I heard somewhere. I thought you told me that like Tom Savini actually had to blow through it because the pump wouldn't work. He had to blow.
Yes, he had,
blow the blood through.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you told me that the other day when we were prepping.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm glad I talked to you.
Yeah, see, I remember things sometimes incorrectly, but most of the time I remember things.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Marcy heads on over to the restrooms, which is its own kind of like entire building, complete with showers as well, and she enters one of the stalls. We cut to a low shot angle of the door, and it creaks open as the ominous music kicks in with the ma ma ma. Someone else enters the building as we pan the bottom of the stalls, eventually reaching Marcy's, with her feet showing underneath. And I also threw in this comment, this is probably Quentin Tarantino's favorite scene, because, picture of feet. You don't know about that Tarantino?
Fetish?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you ever watch his movies and see how many like foot shots and stuff he does with feet in those movies.
All right. I'll have to
that's a well-known thing. That's a well-known fact.
That's
why I threw in the joke here. That's why I threw in the joke here. So inside, Marcy noticed a limerick written on the wall that says, 40 yards to the outhouse by Willie Macon, remarking, come on, kids, you can do better than that. And I'm ashamed to admit it took me a lot longer than it should have to get that joke. Do you get it? 40 yards to the outhouse by Willie Macon.
Like making love?
No. So it's kind of
Willie Macon. Willie Macon?
It is Macon, M-A-C-O-N. But it's supposed to be make it. Like, it's a play on words. Macon sounds like make it.
Oh, will he make it?
Yeah. Get it as in will he make it to the outhouse?
Oh,
that's why it took me way longer to figure that joke out. Like, I'm like, Willie, because it's Macon. She clearly says it with an N. It's not like supposed to be make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ashamed to admit it took me way longer to get it.
I didn't
if
that.
The name was Make It, it would have made more sense.
I thought it was just something stupid. They just, like the way she played it off as.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like very good. But then I'm like, oh, I get it now.
That one
Sounds
went
like a joke I would have wrote.
way over my head.
That's all right. You know how long it took me to get that joke? Till I watched it for this review. So,
Hey, man.
but she hears a noise and calls out Jack's name. But she doesn't get any response, and no Kenny Loggins plays, so I don't think it's him. I told you how many Footlooses.
It's all right.
I think that's
going.
it. I don't know if that deserved a badoom ching, but
That's
all my pages are sticking together here. God damn it! All this fucking syrup that's attracting these ants on the table is making my note pages stick together. Delores, get a fucking towel over here and clean this shit up. So she goes and washes her hands and does a Katharine Hepburn impression, saying, "When I looked into that mirror, I knew I'd always be ugly. I said, Lizzie, you'll always be plain." I had to actually look it up because I'm like, I know that's referencing another old-timey actor thing, and it's from The Rainmaker, I guess. I'm like, what is it with all these characters quoting old actors from classical movies?
The Rainmaker with Matt Damon.
No, different Rainmaker.
I think it's a remake. I don't know.
So Marcy hears some rustling and calls out, "Hello," as the score begins to play softly, slowly, getting louder. She disregards it and continues washing her hands, but after hearing some more noise, she calls out to Ned, thinking it might be one of the counselors playing a prank on her. After getting no response, she goes to investigate, opening the door to the shower stalls and turning on the light. She quickly opens one of the shower curtains, but there is no one in the stall. She goes to check the next one, and we cut to the POV of the stall, and she opens the curtain, and is disappointed to find nothing inside, remarking that it must have been her imagination. But she can't see the shadow of an axe being raised behind her, in an awesome-looking shot. As she closes the curtain and turns around, the score kicks into high gear as she gasps as the axe is being raised. She screams, and we have kill number 6, axe-splitting headache. The axe clangs off the hanging light shade overhead as it comes down with a loud thud, and we cut back to Marcy with the axe firmly planted in her face through her eye as she slumps to the ground, cutting back to the light swinging back and forth overhead before jumping back to the lodge. And I believe this is another scene that gets cut short in the regular version. Do you see her face completely with the axe in it? Or does it cut after it hits the light and you just hear a thud and then you just see the light hanging?
No, you see it in her head.
You see it in her head? Okay.
Yeah.
It's tough to tell because a lot of the unrated stuff, they just extend out the gore scenes so you can look on them longer. The biggest difference is the Kevin Bacon one. Back at the Strip Monopoly game, Bill is already shirtless and Brenda is having the worst run of bad luck since Richard Nixon as she is in the process of taking off her shirt, leaving her with just a bra and panties. Alice doesn't fare much better on her next turn as she is forced to remove her blouse. But before she can finish unbuttoning it, a gust of wind blows open the door, causing Monopoly bucks to be blown about as Bill rushes to close the door. Of course, the final girl can't be allowed to take her top off. Brendan remarks that she left the windows open in her cabin, which puts the game on hold for it to be finished another night. But just like a real game of Monopoly, I have a feeling this one is never getting finished either. Also, sure, you left the windows open, Brenda. You just didn't want to have to get naked, you filthy cheater. That's what you get for trying to claim you rode boxcars earlier. So she throws on a raincoat, but doesn't put her clothes back on. I guess they're just permanent property of the Strip Monopoly game now. And rushes out into the storm while Alice and Bill clean up. Meanwhile, we cut to a diner and check in on Steve Christie's 5-hour-long lunch break. Because he said he was going to get lunch, but he's been gone until night.
It just seemed like forever.
Inside, the waitress Sandy asks if there is anything else he needs. But for crying out loud, the guy has been there for 5 hours. He must have eaten everything in there. At least Sandy seems to provide some good service. Unlike Delores, maybe we can get Sandy to work here. But everything he ordered came out to $2.25. Geez, what did he do? Just sip a cup of coffee for 5 hours and have a sandwich? Also, I do miss the prices of the 80s. Stupid inflation. Not to be topical, but stupid inflation. Also, maybe this is another reason he took so long. Maybe he was caught up in a really heated camp owner's poker game with that other camp owner from Mad Men. That's a deep cut there. So Steve dons his yellow raincoat and leaves the diner and gets into his Jeep. He was also wearing flannel. So this is actually something I didn't pick up on until years later, and it could be because the TV cut or the theatrical cut doesn't do as much with it to show it. But I think they're trying to set up Steve Christie as being the red herring killer for the film. Granted, he is not wearing the exact same flannel shirt as the killer. It's a similar style, but not 100% matches the pattern. It's kind of similar colors. But with that yellow raincoat on, I'm still a little suspicious. Plus, he has a thing for a girl named Alice. He might have gone to the same congregation as another Alice and taken her raincoat. The killer in this movie just may have saved everyone from another homicidal murder spree. So we jump back to Brenda as she stops into the bathrooms to brush her teeth. But the creepy score starts again as we cut to the shower stalls with the lights still on.
Was she using Pepsodent toothpaste? I was trying to figure out what the brand of toothpaste is. I don't know why that came to my mind. I'm like, what the hell brand of toothpaste?
Maybe we can get them to sponsor some obscure brand of toothpaste.
Pepsodent? I think they still make it, yeah.
So,
yeah.
As we cut to the shower stalls with the lights still on and the curtain drawn halfway open on one of the stalls. So this is back with Brenda. So she's brushing her teeth, cuts back to the shower stall as a hand comes out, grabbing the side of the curtain, but quickly going back inside the stall. If Christy is the killer, he sure can't teleport around the camp very fast. And who am I kidding? That ability practically becomes a staple of the franchise, so he very well could still be the killer. So Brenda keeps glancing at the stall as she's gathering up her things, but dismisses it and turns off the lights and leaves. But we cut to one last shot of the shower room, and the hanging light is now swinging back and forth. Bum, bum, bum. And with that cut, I think now is a good time to cut to a break. And we're back from our break. So meanwhile, Christy is stuck on the side of the road as his Jeep has stalled and won't start. Luckily, police officer Sergeant Tierney pulls up and offers to give him a lift back to camp. And then back with Brenda in her cabin, we get a POV shot and the score starts again as someone is watching her through her window and through some tree branches. So, noticeable thing about this film, they lacked a Steadicam for the film crew in this, which lends itself very well to the POV killer shots. It gives you that kind of that bouncing movement as if somebody's actually walking.
I like that,
and you're looking from their POV. And it also adds a nice touch in that you can't always tell on some shots if you're supposed to be looking at the POV of the killer until they're actually over, adding kind of an extra layer of suspense with those scenes. So it's like, well, is this the killer's perspective or isn't it? It adds some suspense and you don't know when somebody's going to, the killer's going to jump out and kill somebody. Inside, she settles into bed and begins reading when a voice calls out and faintly says, "Help me." So she looks up from her book, but after not hearing anything else, starts reading again. But then the voice calls out, "Help me," again. So she gets up and grabs a flashlight to investigate as the score begins to get louder and more intense. So she opens the door and calls out, "Hello," and the voice calls back, "Over here, please, somebody help me." So Brenda wanders out into the rain, looking for the source of the voice, only wearing her nightgown. What is it with this chicken not putting on any clothes when going out into the storm? I think she threw on her raincoat again, but I can't remember. But yeah, it's like, don't put on a full set of clothes with a raincoat. No, just stay in your nightgown. She eventually ends up at the archery range, calling out to the voice. And we cut to a switch box being opened, and a hand flips the switch, turning on the spotlights and illuminating the archery range. Also, this right hand has a ring on it that we've seen on the killer's right hand before. Christy, from what I've seen, lacks this ring. Also, the killer is in a green raincoat, and Christy was in a yellow raincoat, so... But the lights turn on with the Tempo Magazine stinger. Brenda looks around and calls out, but we can't see anything from the blinding lights shining on her. We cut away, but we have kill number 7. Brenda is off-screen to death as we cut to a shot of the lodge with her scream being drowned out by thunder. Now, I would like to point out, whose voice was it? Obviously, we got Mrs. Voorhees running around. I mean, we have an unknown killer running around. Spoiler alert, Mrs. Voorhees. Anyways, running around, killing people. And she does use a voice later on to imitate her son. But this voice doesn't sound like that voice. And when I had the subtitles on, it actually comes across and it says young Jason saying, "Help me." So like the scene when they flash back later on in the movie to Jason in the lake saying, "Help me." So I'm pretty sure it's actual Jason's voice. So was Jason actually using his voice here to help his mother? Or was it the mother pretending to be Jason and they just used the exact voice? I think it might have been Jason. I think it's
who is playing Jason at the end.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe. I think it's an illusion. I think it alludes to...
I haven't read anything on that, so yeah.
I think it alludes to that Jason actually is still alive. And the subtitles, when you turn on the closed captioning to the movie, gives it away. So inside the lodge, Alice is just hanging out when Bill comes back from checking on the generator. Alice thinks she heard Brenda scream and remarks that somebody turned on the lights at the archery range. But Bill looks through the window, and they are off now. So they head out to Brenda's cabin to investigate, and as they look around, they find a bloody axe tucked into bed, accompanied by dramatic music. So Alice asks, what is going on? And they have to check in on Jack and Marcy, but they aren't at their cabin either. So they go to the restrooms and check there, but they find nothing. Bill remarks that if this is a joke, he's going to break someone. But Alice's final girl instincts kick in, and she thinks that they should call someone. They go to the office, but it's locked, so they grab a 2x4 to bust out the window so they can unlock the door. So inside, they go to try the phone, and we have a cool shot where the camera stays outside and slowly pans over to watch them through the window. And the phone, like the rest of the counselors, is dead. But Bill says to try the payphone. So we got another payphone, but it's kind
This
of
is weird.
You don't really see the payphone.
Why would you have a payphone? Like,
well,
in
for like kids and visitors to use.
Was it the office though?
Yeah.
I guess.
Like
Yeah.
they probably tried the phone behind like the counter, which is, just for official use. All the other schlubs have to use the payphone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they go to use the payphone, but you don't see the payphone, like I said, it's off screen because the camera pans over on the outside, still through the window, and pans over upward to the phone wire, and then pans over to reveal that the line has been cut. So the payphone doesn't work either. Outside, they hop in the truck, but it won't start. Alice suggests that they hoof it to the nearest place, but Bill counters that it's 10 miles to the nearest crossroads, and that Steve will be coming back soon, and they can use his Jeep if they need to get help. He reassures her that there's probably a stupid explanation for all of this, and they'll be laughing about it in the morning. I have a feeling, though, that Bill is not going to be laughing about it. Also, Alice's raincoat is yellow. Maybe she is the Alice from Alice, Sweet Alice, and maybe Christy was going to finally bring her to justice. The killer from Alice, Sweet Alice might still be on the loose, people. So speaking of Christy, we cut back to him and the sergeant driving along, and the cop remarks that it's not bad enough that it's Friday the 13th, but there's a Full Moon Entertainment logo tonight, too. There's probably animated puppets, trancers, and an evil bong running around the woods tonight, too. So the cop talks about how the statistics show there are more accidents, crime, etc. during a full moon. It's probably because of the aforementioned full moon characters I listed above running amok. Also, this technically is also where the term lunacy originates from. Lunatic and lunacy because of luna, the prefix, Latin for the moon, if you didn't know that.
I did not.
Because, of the increased instances of people being crazy when there's a full moon out.
Oh, okay.
There is some statistics to back that up with more stuff happening. I don't know if it's just coincidence or if, maybe it's just some science thing with the moon's gravitational pull on Earth because the moon affects the tides, Maybe it affects people's minds by pulling on their brains. I have no idea. I'm just making shit up, but it's probably more coincidence than anything, but who knows. The cop also says that Ralph was at the camp earlier, and Christy says that's all he needs is crazy Ralph running around. I'm like, apparently you do, because he tried to warn those counselors, and if they would have listened, they might still be alive. As the rain stops, Sergeant Turney gets a call on the radio from dispatch that there's been an accident with possible fatalities. Does that mean there's more kills for the kill count? I don't think those count. So he drops off Christy at the driveway to the camp entrance and turns around to head toward the crash. So we get a Camp Crystal Lake sign establishing shot as Christy jogs towards the camera, but someone standing behind the sign turns on a flashlight and shines it on Christy, blinding him, and right on cue, we get a Tempo magazine stinger. A lot of Tempo magazine stingers.
Oh, we love Tempo magazine stingers.
He calls out, "Hello, who is that?" as he holds up a hand to block the light and approaches the figure with the intense score playing. The music pauses as Christy gets close enough to recognize the person and asks them what they are doing out all the way out here. But before he can get an answer, we have kill number 8. Before cutting away, Steve Christy flinches and his mouth drops open, implying a stab to the gut as we cut away to a shot of the camp from the lake, lit up by all the lampposts and lights coming from inside the cabins. So this is another off-screen death. Kind of a bummer, but they come back later. It'll get shown. So we jump to a POV shot of the killer approaching the generator shed. As they go inside, we cut back to the same shot of the lake that showed everything lit up, but you hear the generator cut out and the camp goes completely dark. Inside the main lodge, Bill gets some lanterns and lights them up. He figures the generator is out of gas and goes to check on it, while Al stays behind to catch some Z's. At the generator shed, Bill heads in, but the generator isn't out of gas, so he takes off a panel to inspect the inside, but we cut to a shot from behind him and the eerie score starts to play again, and he starts to look around the shed for parts and tools. We jump cut back to Alice, who wakes up screaming for Bill, but she's still alone, so she gets up and heads to the kitchen to boil some water for coffee. This is some more of that riveting filler, but there is some suspense to some of these filler scenes, as you don't know if the killer is going to randomly pop up out of nowhere or not. Alice decides to go out looking for Bill, but upon entering the generator shed, she just finds his abandoned raincoat. So she exits, but as she closes the door to the shed, she turns around and we have kill number 9, door jammed. Bill is stuck to the door with several arrows skewered through his body, including one through the neck and another through the eye, with his throat slashed and his body covered in blood. Alice screams and the score goes into maximum overdrive as she runs back to the lodge. Inside, Alice secures the front door by looping rope through the rafters and tying it to the doorknob, and then begins to block it off with various things from the room while she's crying and breathing heavily. With the entrance secure, she brandishes a baseball bat and checks the rest of the lodge, while the awesome, creepy piano music plays. She also grabs a large cooking fork as well. Not quite the same as the one used to kill that one guy from Blood Rage, or I forget his name. It's a 3-prong instead of a 2-prong, but similar type.
Yeah.
Meant for like turning like steaks and shit on grills. The music pauses for a moment as she takes a breather, leaning up against the fridge and asking out loud, what is she going to do? But this is only a brief respite, as Brenda's corpse bound in rope comes crashing through the window next to the refrigerator and lands on the floor, covered in blood, causing the score to ramp up again, and Alice to slowly slump to the floor, dropping the fork and bat as she cries and crawls on the floor, eventually regaining her footing and heading back into the living room, but not before her raincoat gets caught on the oven, which she quickly wiggles out of and leaves it behind. In the living room, she sees car headlights shine through the window and looks out to see a Jeep pulling up. She thinks it's Steve's and runs out to greet him. Also, quick teleport from throwing Brenda through the window and getting back to that Jeep, huh? So as she runs out to the Jeep, she stops and we get a Tempo magazine sticker, which kills the music as she sees it's not Steve coming out of the Jeep, but instead a lady. She asks, who are you? And she introduces herself as Mrs. Vorhees, played by Betsy Palmer, an old friend of the Christies. So it only takes over an hour for Betsy Palmer to finally show up.
It's so weird, like, when it happens. Like, it's
it
like...
is a bit off-putting.
She looks like a Golden Girl or something. I don't know. Like when they
I think that's the whole point of it, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It just seemed like it turned into, like, almost like a sitcom where, like, it's just like
right?
this weird moment that, yeah.
She runs up and embraces Mrs. Voorhees, still crying and mumbling, but Mrs. Voorhees can't understand her and tells her to calm down. Alice tells her about all the dead counselors, although she mentions she's dead and he's dead, and oh my god, poor Bill. That's 3 people and she's only seen 2, unless she's also referring to Bill. Also, that's not how you say, oh my god. You're supposed to say, oh my god.
That wasn't as good as the last
I
time.
know. That's all right.
No.
Blame it on my sinuses. Mrs. Voorhees asks her to show her the bodies, but Alice is scared to. But Mrs. Voorhees reassures her that she'll take care of her, wink wink, and that she used to work for the Christies. Alice still refuses, saying they'll kill her too, but Mrs. Voorhees is not afraid. So they go inside, and Mrs. Voorhees quickly finds Brenda's body, and she gasps and remarks that she was so young, so pretty. What monster could have done this? Then she goes on a bit of a rant saying that Steve should have never reopened this place because there was too much trouble here, and then lays down some exposition, asking her if she knew a young boy drowned the year before those 2 others were killed. Yeah, Enos told us all about that back in the first act. Try to keep up, Betsy Palmer. She elaborates that the counselors weren't paying any attention and were making love when that young boy drowned. Sounds like they had their priorities straight. She tells Alice that his name was Jason, and thus a horror icon was born. She goes on and says that she was working the day it happened and was the cook. Mrs. Voorhees then gets really intense, stating that Jason should have been watched every minute, grabbing and shaking Alice violently. She begins to say he was, but trails off, calms down, and finishes with, he wasn't a very good swimmer, as she caresses Alice's hair. Nope, nothing suspicious about her. She tells Alice that they can go now, but Alice wants to wait for Mr. Christie, but Mrs. Voorhees chuckles and retorts that that's not necessary. Alice replies that she doesn't understand, and right on cue we get some more eerie music as Mrs. Voorhees turns and stares off into the distance, as we fade to a flashback of the lake with Jason flailing around in the water calling for help from his mommy. This is a very cool shot because it keeps fading back and forth between her face and this lake shot before she finally says, I am Jason, I am. Alice says, oh God, and Mrs. Voorhees turns back to her and gives us the big reveal. Jason was my son, and today, Friday the 13th, is his birthday. She doesn't say the Friday part, but Jason's birthday in the canon is Friday, June 13th.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in 1980. Was he also born on a Friday, though? It's a real question. He's born on June 13th.
I don't know.
Maybe we can backtrack and see when... I'm curious if June 13th was actually on a Friday in 1980 when this film came out.
Was it released on?
No, like if the actual date that corresponds to 1980, the present Friday. June 13th was actually the correct date of the present. Because there's a lot of movies that fuck shit up like that. Like they'll list a day like Tuesday, whatever, 19 whatever, but that day was actually on. It's not a big deal.
I'll just...
Sure. So there are some nice little touches here. She still has the ring on. And while she is wearing her iconic sweater...
It was a Friday.
It was a Friday?
Yeah.
So now we can backtrack and figure out when Jason was born. Because he was born on June 13th. When was the last Friday that was a June 13th before 1980? The real question is, was he even born on a Friday? I feel like that's too much of a hassle to look through to figure out, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not worth looking
I'm
up.
not time hopping.
But anyway, so like I said, back with some of the nice little touches here. So she's wearing her iconic sweater, which covers most of her body, but underneath it, you can see that she's wearing the same pattern of flannel shirt underneath the sweater, which is something I never picked up on until years later as well.
Yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah.
It's very easy to miss because the sweater takes up most of it. You can see a little bit of the collar, and sometimes when she's moving her arms, you can see it sticking out from the arms of the sweater. So Alice asks, where's Mr. Christie? And Mrs. Voorhees replies that she couldn't let him reopen this place again, not after what had happened, also revealing that Jason was her only child. She comes back from looking off into space and accosts Alice, accusing her of letting Jason drown. So she shoves an end table out of the way, lifting her sweater to reveal a sheath with a hunting knife that she pulls out, shouting, "Look what you did to him!" and charges to attack Alice. Alice quickly reacts and grabs a fire poker and hits her arm, causing her to fall on the couch, to which Alice follows up with a whack across her back. The score intensifies as Alice uses this break to make a run for the door. She heads for the Jeep, but inside she finds Annie's corpse, with her gaping neck wound covered in a thick layer of blood. She screams and runs off, but Christie's body swings down and jump scares her, hanging from a tree with a knife in his chest, causing her to scream again and run off into a different direction. By this time, Mrs. Voorhees has come to and stumbles outside. As the music calms down for a moment, to heighten the tension, as she watches Alice run off into the woods. Imitating her son, she says, "Kill her, Mommy! Don't let her live!" She replies back to herself, "I won't, Jason," on an awesome close-up of her face, showing off this intensity in her face before she heads off to pursue her. Alice makes her way to a large storage building. Inside is a rifle rack with dozens of rifles leaning against it. She grabs one and looks for ammo, which this was not uncommon back in the day to have rifles at a camp, because they'd have shooting ranges and archery ranges and stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, in the Quarry, takes place at a camp in the woods. They have a rifle range as well. So I don't know if the modern times is as accustomed to this practice. Just an interesting note. So meanwhile, Miss Voorhees turns the generator back on, illuminating camp. Alice is still looking for bullets, but they are locked in a desk drawer. She hears a noise and gives up on trying to bust the lock in the search for bullets as Mrs. Voorhees slides the door open. Alice points the rifle at her, hoping her bluff works. But Mrs. Voorhees tells her to come, dear, and that it will be easier for you than it was for Jason, before reverting to her kill her Jason voice. As she approaches, Alice throws the gun at her and other random things to slow her down. But eventually she is cornered and Betsy Palmer bitch slaps her some, eventually throwing her against the table that collapses. And I got a fun fact here that I heard not too long ago. So having never starred in any type of fight or action sequences before, Betsy Palmer actually, on the first take, hit Adrienne King, causing her to cry. Yes. And then Cunningham had to explain to her that they don't actually hit anybody in films when they fight.
Yes. She actually bitch slapped her.
So gave her a good old pimp hand. So I think that's hilarious. Which is kind of like Betsy Palmer probably never expected to star in anything like this, so she wouldn't really need that acting talent. So as Mrs. Voorhees grapples with her again, Alice is able to grab a gun and knocks her down, providing an opportunity for her to escape. Mrs. Voorhees eventually comes to and wanders through the woods to look for Alice, past some sections of dock yet to be floated onto the lake. After she passes, Alice pokes up from behind the dock sections that she was hiding behind and runs the other way, and we cut to another shot of the full moon logo, interspliced with Mrs. Voorhees doing her Jason voice saying, "She can't hide. No place to hide," and footage of Alice running back to the lodge. So Alice turns off the lights and looks for a place to hide, eventually settling on the closet pantry. So she slumps to the floor as we hear Mrs. Voorhees outside in the lodge, turning the place over looking for Alice. Breathing a sigh of relief next to the door after the noises stop, we see the doorknob slowly start to turn, ever so slowly, but then violently starts turning back and forth, which startles Alice, and she backs away from the door as Mrs. Voorhees starts to hack at the door with the machete, eventually opening a hole for her to peek inside and smile at Alice, Jack Torrance style, through the hole she made in the door, as she undoes the lock for the pantry. Also, who puts a lock on the inside of a pantry? It's a weird place for a lock. It's just like I understand the door handle on the inside because it does open and close, but it's a little like the door handles that were on the inside of the closet in Halloween. Like, the knobs on the closet door. That's a little weird. So she goes to swing the machete at Alice, but she ducks and then gives her a frying pan to the face, knocking out Mrs. Voorhees. Alice, cautious, nudges Mrs. Voorhees with her foot, turning her over to reveal a small amount of blood on the floor. And then she runs off to the docks. So, I don't know why she just didn't finish her off here. She must have thought that, she hit her head, she was dead. But who knows? She stops and sits by the shore next to a canoe, perhaps thinking that she has subdued Mrs. Voorhees. But the score kicks back in as a shadow creeps over her shoulder, and we cut to a shot of the lakeshore water, where we see the reflections of Alice and Mrs. Voorhees as she raises the machete to strike. But Alice sees the reflection and grabs an oar as Mrs. Voorhees swings and yells, allowing her to block the strike, which snaps the oar in two. She drops one half, but uses the other to deflect the next strike, knocking the machete to the ground. Mrs. Voorhees grabs Alice from behind, and in the ensuing struggle, grabs the oar and strikes Alice with it, knocking her to the ground. Mrs. Voorhees goes to use the broken end to stab Alice, but she rolls out of the way, causing her to miss. The two then roll around on the ground in a struggle, and Pamela, she's trying to strangle her, but Alice tries to shove her away, but Mrs. Voorhees bites her arm in response. But this loosens up her hold on her strangling Alice and allows her to flip her over. She tries to get away, but Mrs. Voorhees grabs her ankle, causing her to fall. She grabs Alice's head and starts slamming it into the sand repeatedly, but turnabout is fair play as Alice bites her arm and throws her off. So she uses this moment to sprint for the dropped machete. As Mrs. Voorhees staggers to her feet, we go into slow motion as Alice turns around with the machete. Mrs. Voorhees gasps and Alice yells as she swings the machete and decapitates Mrs. Voorhees in all of its glory. Blood spewing out and her hands raised and clenching repeatedly in the air, grasping at nothing as the body slumps to the ground. With one final shot of the full moon logo, the music changes to a softer, lighter tone as Alice boards a canoe and casts off into the lake. We fade to the next morning, Saturday the 14th, starring Jeffrey Tambor. We'll talk about that one sometime. As Alice is asleep in the canoe, with the heartening score continuing as she has survived the night, a police car pulls up to the shore with some officers stepping out and looking out at the lake. Alice slowly comes to as she sees the officers yelling out to her, but we don't hear any words as the score is engulfed by this uplifting music, as she looks on, leaning against the side of the canoe with one hand in the water. But all of a sudden, this is interrupted with Harry Manfredini's powerful score kicking in, as the body of young Jason Vorhees, with his horribly disfigured face, leaps out of the lake from behind Alice, grabbing her and dragging her out of the canoe and underneath the water in a Tempo magazine end stinger. What could arguably be the greatest end stinger of all time in horror history. From there, we cut to Alice screaming as she wakes up in the hospital bed. The doctor quickly reassures her that everything is all right and calms her down with some Valium. So Sergeant Turney is there as well and informs her that her parents are on their way. Alice asks if all the others are dead, and he confirms this, stating that 2 of his men pulled her out of the lake, and that they thought she was dead too. He asks if she remembers anything, but she asks back, "The boy, is he dead too?" Puzzled, Sergeant Turney, he asks, "Who?" And Alice exclaims, "The boy, Jason! The one who attacked me and pulled me underneath the water." The sergeant replies, "Ma'am, we didn't find any boy," which confuses Alice, but then she comes to the realization and states, "Then he's still there." Bum bum bum. And then a soft score plays again as Alice stares off into the distance, and we get a crossfade to the shot zooming in on Crystal Lake, with perfectly timed small ripples on the surface to hint that something still haunts Camp Crystal Lake, and it's still not safe, and may never be safe, to go camping in that fateful location ever again, which we will learn all about in the sequels as the screen fades to black and we roll credits. And the credits lead off with starring Betsy Palmer, who only did this so she could buy a new car. Now, do you think the new car was that Jeep that she was driving around in? Or do you think she just drove off after filming and was like, well, hey, this is a nice car. Hey, what's that over there? And just hopped in the Jeep and then drove off with it after it was filming because she's like, fuck this film. I'm getting out of here. I'm taking this Jeep with me, so I got a car.
Maybe.
That Jeep must have been such a great car that she killed for it.
So yeah, you harkening back to that. So when they first gave her the script after she read it, she threw it across the room and called it a piece of shit.
Yeah, I heard she thought it was trash.
That's when she thought, well, you know what? I'll just do it to buy a car. They paid her $1,000 a day for 10 days.
Yeah, 10 grand. Not bad. Not a bad payday. So also in the credits, so Ari Lehman, the first Jason ever in film, and that's also the name of his band. He has a band called The First Jason, if you didn't know that.
Okay.
I've known about that for a little bit. Oh, one thing I do want to point out, I don't remember if it's in my notes, but I know Alice said she was going to go back to I did say California, because she went all the way from California to New Jersey. I have a lot to say about that in the sequel, but we'll get to that when it comes up.
I have a lot of stuff here.
Sure, go for it.
All right,
before we dive into the last bite.
Yeah. All right, so the budget of this movie was $550,000, and it grossed domestically and worldwide for a total of $59.8 million. Say that's pretty damn good.
Yep.
So originally, what's the director's name? Sorry.
Sean S. Cunningham.
Cunningham. He wanted to basically not sell the script, and so he put an ad in Variety magazine with that logo that we see in the beginning. And I think there were some companies competing with it. Eventually, Paramount Pictures, they purchased the rights to distribute. That's what he was looking for, distributor.
Yeah.
To distribute their film. They purchased the rights for $1.5 million. This became the first ever indie slasher film purchased by a major film company.
There you go.
Let's see what else.
Now, did they use the profits like Mustafa Akkad to fund his passion film projects about Islam?
No, I don't know.
No? Did you know about that?
No.
I can't remember if we talked about that in the Halloween episode, but yeah.
So let's see here. At first, they kind of deny it, and then they said, that they took a lot of stuff from Halloween.
Oh, of course. This was another
did.
Halloween cash-in.
So, but they said they took stuff from Halloween and a little bit from Meatballs. So nobody knows. There's many that come out to say, hey, we're the one that wanted to put Jason at the end. We're the one. But Tom, I don't know, I think he mostly goes to Savini saying that he wanted to have Jason come out at the end for that.
For the final stinger.
The final stinger. And he got the inspiration from Carrie. From Brian De Palma's Carrie.
There Carrie's hand comes out of the ground.
And I don't think he didn't deny it, and Brian De Palma didn't care. Because actually, I think Brian De Palma liked it.
It's been done before in many things.
But Brian De Palma liked it.
A lot of Friday the 13th inspiration comes from, I can't remember the name of the Mario Bava film, but it's heralded as a very big influence on the slasher genre.
But the writer of the film, Victor Miller, he didn't like the idea of making Jason a killer. He was written as just,
the motivation for
the motivation. That's it. They didn't. I don't think he knew how big it would get.
Yeah, I think the film's better off for it.
Yeah. Let's see what else I got here. So Alice, Adrienne King, after the film.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with
She was stalked by an obsessed fan. And it really freaked her out. So I don't know what she signed, but she signed to be in part 2, and she wanted her role to be extremely small. Now I haven't seen it lately, part 2, but she apparently dies early, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And also,
that's another joke I make is just because you survive one film doesn't mean you're surviving the sequel.
Yeah. Also, she didn't do any roles in any other movies or public appearances for almost 20 years after that movie. So, screw that creeper.
Yeah, she does a good job in this. So
okay, so let's see. Now I got some well, no, this is kind of cool. So, in Halloween, there's a ton of music. And now Manfredini, he went a different way. He didn't want to use a lot of music.
Right. There's a lot of silence in the film.
Yeah.
Yes.
What he did, though, is he would cut the music off a little bit, trail it off before a kill, because he wanted the audience to relax a little bit. And then when the kill would happen, the score would, he would just come in really strong.
Yeah, like you see that with Annie's death, where she
scare people.
Yeah. Right. With Annie's death, she trips and falls, and then there's the silence, and then the killer comes back, and then the score starts up. Yep, there's a couple of instances where it does that. All right. It is very good.
Like I said before, it was filmed at that Camp Nobi Bosco. They filmed everywhere on it. The only thing they had to build for it was the bathroom set. Another just fun fact is Lou Reed at the time lived nearby by that place. So he came in and he visited them for like one day.
Lou Reed?
Yeah, the musician. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Just fun facts that there is a town called Voorhees, New Jersey. That's where they got it from. And there's a town called Haddonfield, New Jersey. That's where they got that from.
That's funny.
There's actually a Crystal Lake in Illinois. Ironically, I guess just funny that Betsy Palmer grew up go into that a lot. That's way before the movie.
That's kind of funny.
So for the role of Betsy, Pamela Voorhees, before they went with Betsy Palmer, they tried to get Estelle Parsons and Shelley Winters, but they turned down the role. They also wanted to get, instead of Adrienne King for Alice, they were trying to get Sally Field, but I don't think they were able to come up with the budget.
She's too busy getting that Smokey and the Bandit money.
Yeah, the budget for her.
And getting Smokey's Bandit. Ayo.
Let's see.
Wait, no,
I gotta
Bandit Smokey? Oh, wow.
Final
That's
kill.
right, Smokey's the cop. Never mind.
No, you're right, man. Final kill count 10, 11 if you include the snake. That's what I'm reading here.
That's funny. 10. I got 9. If you count Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah.
I never count the killer.
Yeah,
killed,
that doesn't
but,
make
I mean,
sense.
it's part of the gore, but...
Now, the character Crazy Ralph was meant to establish 2 functions. Foreshadow the events to come and insinuate he could actually be the murderer.
Yeah, he's another red herring, too.
Yeah. The director states that he didn't know. He was apprehensive about using him because he was not sure if he accomplished the goal, like afterwards of the filming, that he is a red herring.
Oh, he's iconic.
Yeah. Also, Betsy Palmer, she liked to give her Mrs. Voorhees a backstory that she imagined Mrs. Voorhees hated sexual transgression because she had Jason out of wedlock with a high school boyfriend, and her parents ultimately disowned her for her sins. That isn't something that good girls do. She said so, like, she has motive against the sex. Now, they think it actually is true. The famous, most people think it's
yeah,
but it's actually Harry Manfredini made this, and it's actually him. It's his voice in the film. It's him. It came from, like, when Mrs. Voorhees said, "Kill, kill, kill, mom, mom, mom," and that's where that comes from, because he was just playing around with it. Kevin Bacon shaved his armpits for the sex scene. That's weird. Okay. All right. So Rotten Tomatoes gave this a 63%. On IMDb, it's a 6.4 out of 10. Oh, I do have some other stuff. I'm so sorry. So at the time, as they used to be, I don't know if they were together then, Siskel and Ebert, Gene Siskel, he really hated this film. And he was notorious to go on whatever platform, and he would spoil the ending for it. And well, boy, was he wrong. So yeah, IMDb 6.4 out of 10. I'm sorry, I want to see the audience score real quick for the Rotten Tomatoes.
What did Ebert give it?
He hated it.
Ebert hated it too?
I got something. So 63% are on Tomatoes, but the audience is 60%, so it's less. But, we'll see here in a second. Hold on 1 second.
I forget what movie I was looking at the other day that Roger Ebert gave like 4 stars.
So I don't know if they were together then, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. I think they both passed away now, but I think he's always hated it, though, what I was reading. Ebert, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, horror movies, slasher films especially.
I could just read right here from my
panned.
IMDb. Just give me 1 second.
It's not a big deal.
I can find it real fast.
There's something that he gave 4 stars that is like, oh, wow, he gave that 4 stars. I don't think it was this film.
So they actually did a special when they were together, Siskel and Ebert, and they called it The War on Women, which focused on misogynistic slasher movies, failing to notice that a lot of men are killed in the movies, and the survivor is a woman.
Right.
But all that special did was boost ticket sales of those movies.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see here, though. Robert Ebert notoriously hated the Friday the 13th films. In his review for the film's direct... Okay, I know in that sequence that doesn't make any sense. So
Yeah, don't worry about it.
sorry about that.
That's Anything else?
That is it. So go ahead.
All right. All right, everybody. So now it's time for the last bite. So, not gonna lie, I've done a lot of back and forth on my opinion of Friday the 13th over the years. Not that I ever thought it wasn't a good film or even a great film. Just that it seemed maybe it was a bit overrated. Perhaps I had seen the TV version one too many times where much of the violence and gore is removed, and all you notice is the filler then. However, I've come to have a greater appreciation of this film, especially having watched the unrated cut. Detractors will often point to the amount of filler in the film, which I agree, it does have some, but I don't think it takes away from the quality of the overall film and gives us a view into what camp activity would have been like had it not been interrupted by a killing spree. While comparing it to several other horror films, copious amount of filler, it seems tame by comparison. And while comparing it to other movies shouldn't excuse the faults of a movie, here I think the filler is fine, and it also gives us a moment to know the characters a bit as well, even if they have little depth to them. And while the red herring isn't the greatest I've seen in a slasher film, it's still fun to look for all the clues on repeat viewings. So what can elevate a slasher horror movie with some minor faults like this into one of the best in the genre? First, we have Harry Manfredini's phenomenal score. It's always used perfectly throughout the film, slowly building tension during a scene where the killer may or may not be watching or lurking around the corner, and ramping up to a frenzied pace during a kill. I often say that the score of a horror film can make the difference between it just being a great film or a true masterpiece of the genre. Second, Tom Savini's amazing practical effects work, giving us blood and gore aplenty and memorable kills that would become a hallmark of the franchise. Third, the cinematography, which delivers us some amazing shots. The lack of a Steadicam actually improves the film, as it gives us a realistic bobbing effect when following the point of view of the killer, and provides, perhaps unintentionally, added suspense on whether we are actually watching from the POV of the killer or not. Fourth, we have the cast. The camp counselors that serve as fodder give us solid performances. Don't really know him too much, but Kevin Bacon, he's always great in everything. While Walt Gorney is the quintessential doomsayer in horror movies, especially the slasher genre, with the creepy delivery of his warning. But the standout performance is delivered by Betsy Palmer, who makes a terrific impact during what little screen time she actually has in this movie, with her seemingly pleasant demeanor that quickly unravels to reveal her unhinged mind. This culminates in one of the greatest slasher chase sequences ever put to film, with its great back-and-forth struggle that ends with one of the best final girl finishers with the amazing decapitation of Pamela Voorhees. Finally, Friday the 13th gives us one of the most memorable and shocking final scares in horror history. While these have become a bit cliche and overused throughout the horror and slasher genre in general, this final scare gives birth to one of the greatest and most iconic slashers in history. And his fateful leap out of the water is just a prelude to the carnage that is to come in the sequels. I can only imagine what it was like seeing that moment on the big screen or drive-in theater in 1980 for the first time was like, with virgin eyes ignorant of the glut of sequels starring the ubiquitous Jason that would ruin the reveal. The power of that final scare cannot be understated. It is these elements combined that has allowed us to overlook these minor faults that would hold back a lesser movie and make it the classic that it is. Now, when compared to the other two first films of the big three slasher franchises, Halloween and A Nightmare on Elm Street, I definitely like those two films more than Friday the 13th. And while it may have started off as another cash-in on the success of Halloween, Friday the 13th became more than that and transformed the genre, upping the ante with more violence and gore, and itself spawning a sea of imitators of the summer camp slasher genre. Thus, my opinion has come back around to recognize the masterpiece in suspense, tension, and gore that is Friday the 13th. My overall rating is the best it can get. 5 pancakes covered in all the bloody and gooey syrup you can handle. And now, to Scary Perry for your last bite.
All right, so I'm kind of coming to this film like I kind of came to Halloween. I think I have seen it before with you, but it was just kind of out of my mind. I think we were way much younger. Yes, we've been friends for a long time, folks. Yeah. Now, as a kid, obviously, you see the hockey mask, Jason.
Yeah,
Jason
overshadows.
I was actually
the first film.
as I grew up as the youngest child with 2 older brothers, and it's always not the greatest thing. I believe one time it was a different Friday the 13th. I think I had nightmares or something, but my brother held my eyes open. Yes, it's okay. I still love my brother. For one of and I didn't like it, and I was crying because I was young. I don't know. I was around first grade age or whatever, and I just didn't like it. They also used to do that with Child Plays movies with me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but they'd held my eyes open. But that obviously. Well, maybe I do still have nightmares. No, I'm just joking. No, it went away. So, but yeah, coming to this movie, yeah, what I like. Obviously, I like. Even though I saw the minimal version, I really enjoyed Tom Savini's effects on this movie.
Yeah, it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
The unrated cut gives you more, though, which is great.
The cast, obviously, at the time, most of these people were unknown. A lot of them came from a Broadway background, etc. I mean, I don't even know who Betsy Palmer was until I seen this.
Yeah,
Kevin Bacon, of course.
This kind of overshadows her other roles.
I know who Kevin Bacon the most, but to me, they got a great bunch of people for the film, and I thought the acting was well done, and just even how she didn't want to do it Betsy Palmer did
Yeah.
an amazing job.
Yeah, which is, for hating a film and hating the script, she gave her all in it.
Like I said, that part where when she first comes, it just feels weird, like it's like a sitcom, like a Golden Girl.
Right.
But God, she was just really good, and the kill scenes were good. Yes, there was a little bit of a filler in it. I thought it got slow, and just like the cop theme was, to me, he's funny, but it's just like the motorcycle cop, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. I'm like, you got to have some kind of like ad filler.
Yeah, they're trying to get to runtime. I get it.
It seemed a little slow. Like some of the stuff.
It's a legitimate knock on it, but I don't think it hurts the film.
And then obviously I'm coming into it and I'm thinking Jason, right? And there's no Jason, right? Yeah, I have to like step back because that's where my mind is, right?
Yeah, he overshadows the whole franchise now.
Because that's, I've seen later films obviously with him in it. And darn damn credit to whoever did it, Tom Savini or whoever, to suggest for him to put that.
Created a horror icon.
You created a horror icon by telling him to come out, jump out of the water there at the end. I like the cinematography as well. I mean, I really enjoy this. I mean, once again, this is one of the earliest first slasher, not first,
Yeah,
but one
the
of
big slasher boom that was
boom.
the early 80s.
And that, you have stuff that, obviously they're going to take from this, they used later from this. Obviously, they take a little bit from something, but I think it stands out on its own. I don't look at this and I'm like, Halloween. It's not Halloween to me. Or
Hey, you got the POV shots from the killer. I get it. They're stalking a bunch of people, a bunch of teenagers, or college age people.
And yeah, even with the filler, it turned me off a little bit. And did I mention the music? God, I didn't. Manfred Nudie is so good. Mm-hmm. He did so amazing in this, and to come up with that just little, so famous now. Nodded them. They did great. So with all that being said, I really enjoyed this film. And I recommend it to anybody, and they should. Obviously, this really doesn't. I mean, it gives you a little bit. I think they delve into it more about Jason than other films, but you're not watching this movie for Jason because he's barely in this,
right?
And they barely say his name in like well over an hour and some change into the film. But with that said, though, this as a slasher film and where it is. Because you can almost think of them as two separate things. Like, hey, there's Friday the 13th, the first movie, and then, there's Friday the 13th, 2. And then you got Jason, you got Hockey Mask Killer. Wait,
yeah,
it's like almost like they're two different film franchises, but they're not. It connects to it. So overall, I'm going to give it 4.5 cannolis out of 5. Definitely recommend this movie, and yeah, it was good.
Well, like I said, it's definitely a movie I've gone back and forth on a lot over the years, but I
could go back and
swung back around to putting it in, the top tier.
I might have had this originally going in as low as, I like the formula.
A lot of people don't like it. I know a lot of people give it much lower marks.
I see it has I've seen a lot of.
It is the highest rated on like Rotten Tomatoes of all in the franchise, but that's not to be unexpected considering like a lot of those movies.
I just think they did a good job.
50s or lower.
I liked it, and I probably might have at one time thought of it as low as a 3, but I don't think it's definitely. It's growing on me, and I think it could grow even more. I don't think it would ever get less from me. Yeah.
Like I said, I wanted to go lower than 4.5, like back in the day when I thought it wasn't as good as people thought it was. Like I said, I still recognize it was good and great, but just thought it might be a little overrated, but I've come back around to appreciate it a lot more. Anyways, so you got anything else for us, Scary Perry, about Friday the 13th?
Now I want to go watch some of the other ones.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think I've got nothing left to say on Friday the 13th as well. That was our review of Friday the 13th, so if you got any comments about Friday the 13th or anything else, feel free to leave us a voicemail at anchor.fm/themadpancaker, and as always, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/themadpancaker, help our podcast grow and make it not so low budget. And like I said, you can follow us on all the social medias. You know where to find us there. I plugged it earlier. But with that, join us next episode where are you eating it or is it eating you? Kind of like the fucking food in this establishment I say about that. Jeez, after that little appetizer Delores brought earlier, she actually brought something. I might have to go hit up that gas station next door for that bathroom, if you know what I mean. Ugh.
Good God.
Anyways, until next time, check please.
Delores!
The International House of Horror.